Chapter 1279. This Tao platform and these buildings are very old. They don't belong to the modern era. Instead, they are immortal after tens of thousands of years. Jiang Tian scanned his surroundings and combined it with the memories of the demons that he had found. He had some understanding in his heart. In fact, it wasn't like the speculations of many intelligence agencies that the Tunguska Demon Lake was formed by the big explosion more than 200 years ago. Or at least, this statement wasn't accurate. The underground part of the Tunguska Demon Lake had a very long history, much longer than the Tunguska explosion. In short, the demon's den under Tunguska had existed since the mythological era. It was a passage formed by planet destruction. In the mythological era, the demons were hunted down by the indigenous sages of Earth. As the spirit chi became thinner and thinner, this place became the residence of the demons. This place was extremely hidden. Other than the pre-Qin descendants like the Yu family, other than the ancient civilizations like Atlantis and Babylon, almost no one knew about it. However, at that time, the development of the demons was still suppressed. At least, they didn't have much of an advantage. Because the process of planet destruction devouring spirit chi hadn't completely ended, it didn't leak out spirit chi and energy for the demons to absorb. Until 200 years ago, when planet destruction's last crazy devouring activity competed with the immortal trap array for the last spirit chi in the world. As the guardian of planet destruction, Ayu challenged Yu Wendon and won. He forced the other party to temporarily imprison the Dharma power of the immortal trap array, causing part of the array to fall, smashing the surface crust of the Tunguska Demon Lake and causing the world-famous Tunguska explosion. Only then did the Demon Lake reveal a trace of its existence. After the components of the immortal trap array fell and the Tunguska explosion, the spirit chi in the world was divided into two and was completely devoured by planet destruction and the immortal trap array. Earth also entered the true age of doom. Cultivation had reached the end of the road, and the ancient Qi refinement cultivators were almost cut off. The famous Pre-Qin sects and the Kunlun sect could only hide in many secret realms. Any Qi refinement cultivators who had connections didn't hesitate to become slaves or servants. They tried their best to attach themselves to and enter many secret realms. They didn't want to walk in the filthy world anymore, which would affect their cultivation and lose their lifespan. On Earth, the pre-Qin Qi refinement cultivators completely disappeared from the mortal world. Only martial artists, ability users, and talents remained in the mortal world. However, if the spirit Qi was too thin, it would be difficult for martial artists to store spirit Qi in their bodies and release true Qi outside their bodies. They could only use some external martial arts and fist techniques, which were reduced to ordinary national martial arts and martial arts. As for those who had reached the realm of projecting true Qi, they were able to dominate a region and were known as grandmasters. However, even then, the truth of the Tunguska magic lake could not be seen through with the backward technology of Earth. The demon soldiers and demon generals of the Tunguska Demon Lake transformed into human forms and walked the world. They relied on the heavenly demon technique to perform miracles and bewitch the tsars of the past generations and the leaders of the Russian native religions. They were worshipped as gods. It had great influence on the secular regime of Russia. Because of this, no secular forces would make a move against the Tunguska Demon Lake. As a result, the demons also obtained a rare period of stable development and recovery. They occupied the Tunguska Demon Lake, and the spiritual energy here became their resources for improvement. Richly endowed by nature, outshining the others. In the past 200 years, the Tunguska Demon Lake had subdued the lost civilizations of Atlantis, Babylon, ancient Egypt and many other gods. That was why when Jiang Tian proposed the Global Myth Alliance, many secret lands and gods of other races rebelled. This white bone platform is more than 300 meters high and is made of countless bones. Walking up there is a bit of a demon art that has become 10,000 bones. A mocking smile appeared on Jiang Tian's face. He walked up step by step and arrived at the top of the platform. He saw. The top of the platform was completely hollow and led straight to the ground. He could see endless hot magma surging, like the mouth of a volcano. Many runes intertwined and floated, forming a flat surface. Normally, the grand cultivators of the demon race would sit on it and absorb spirit chi and malice chi. Kang Tae-chu, what are you doing? Don't be reckless. It's too dangerous here. Jiang Tian made a hand seal as if he was going to open the seal and go underground. Ah, you, who was being carried by Jiang Tian like a chick, yelled, do you know how dangerous it is? He was extremely nervous. His body was shaking and he clenched his fists tightly. Dangerous? Jiang Tian casually threw him to the ground. He took out 2 treasures while smiling calmly and said, you're right. He smiled and said, the underground is indeed terrifying. It's hot, high pressure and poisonous, but it's not a problem for me. According to Ah Yu's memory, Star Destroyer should be more than 3,000 kilometers underground, sinking into the lower mantle and entering the liquid outer core. According to Jiang Tian's speculation, the temperature there was more than 4,000 degrees Celsius and the pressure was so great that even diamonds could be pressed into liquid. The state of matter there was already unimaginable. It had the hardness of steel and titanium alloys, but also the softness of wax and asphalt. Jiang Tian had 6 divine bodies, so he wasn't even afraid of a nuclear explosion. He wasn't afraid of normal magma, high temperature, and high pressure at all. More importantly, Jiang Tian had already prepared his Dharma treasures. Fire-resistant earth and mountain-crushing drill were the treasures Jiang Tian got from the treasure palace of the Changshan sect. They were both spirit treasures. One could resist magma and the other could drill through mountains and even go 10,000 miles deep. It was unimaginable for ordinary people. He took out the 2 Dharma treasures. One was the size of a bucket and looked like a craggy stone, but it was glittering. It was using fire to fight fire and heat to create heat. The other one was like a cone, a few meters long. There were threads on the tip, and the arc was smooth and beautiful. It rotated towards the back, and there was a cabin inside for people to sit in. However, the cabin cover was tightly sealed, as if it was made by nature. The cone looked like something out of science fiction and futuristic. However, there were ancient patterns on it, which proved that it didn't come from the future. Most importantly, the cauldron of myriad origin was the most powerful thing. Its initial energy could block all kinds of damage and help Jiang Tian go underground. What a treasure! Senior Tai Chu, these 2 Dharma treasures are indeed powerful. They can go underground. Ah, you knew what was good and his face immediately changed. But after a moment of hesitation, he shook his head and said with fear, there's still some immortal slayers on the planet. However, there are still immortal corpses slumbering around planet destruction. Once we get close, they might wake up. We definitely won't be able to resist them. Once we enter, we will die miserably. For thousands of years, the Tungus demons have been active in the area around the lake until we reach the demon begging palace. We can't open the platform. It's a forbidden area. A forbidden area. I heard from our ancestors that a peak stage nascent soul ancient demon wanted to get close to the immortal slayers to devour spirit chi, but he was killed by the ancient corpses. So, those demon kings have been carefully reinforcing the fiend patterns on the platform to avoid any accidents. Senior, it's very scary. We have to be careful. For example, the ancient lake and the others are sitting on nuclear warheads to cultivate. Jiang Tian had massacred the Tungus demons. Of course, Ah Yu hated Jiang Tian to the core. He hoped that Jiang Tian would die. It would be best if he was completely devoured by the terrifying underground world, leaving nothing behind. That would be revenge for his people. But he was afraid that Jiang Tian would bring him along. If that happened, he would also die with Jiang Tian. It's okay. If you can go in safely, what about me? Jiang Tian said with a mocking expression. Senior, I know you've searched my memories. But you're wrong. I did go to the vicinity of the immortal slayers, but someone else took me in. Ah Yu shook his head. Ah Yu's lifespan was over 1,000 years, and his memories were complex and long. Back then, Jiang Tian had only used a few minutes to search through his memories. It was like watching a video that was sped up 1,000 times, 10,000 times. Even with Jiang Tian's powerful divine sense, it was inevitable that he would miss something. What? Who took you in? Jiang Tian slowly opened Yu's memories in his mind, especially the part about the immortal slayers. That memory took place about 30 years ago. His divine sense was completely immersed in Yu's memories. Jiang Tian heard the ancient lake's voice, which was full of humility and respect. Envoy, Your Excellency, I didn't expect that after 100,000 years, the immortals of the immortal slayers still haven't forgotten their lowly servants. Jiang Tian saw a handsome white-clothed immortal, whose face was blurry, slowly walk into the Demon Seeker Hall. Old Demon Gu Hu and many other demon race experts kowtowed in front of this immortal. Who is he? At this moment, Jiang Tian suddenly felt his heart palpitate. He strengthened his divine sense and glared at this white-clothed immortal. This was because he felt a sense of déjà vu from this godly person. He had definitely seen this godly person in his previous life. Chapter 1280. Gu Hu knelt on the ground, trembling. Tears flowed down his cheeks like the most devout believer seeing a god. The many demon commanders and demon generals behind him bowed deeply with respect and joy on their faces. Jiang Tian tried his best to see the god in white, but it was useless. It wasn't that Jiang Tian's soul sense wasn't enough, but that the memory of Yu might have been destroyed by the god. Or maybe he had set up a barrier on his face when he appeared to hide his true appearance. Although he couldn't see the face of the man, Jiang Tian still felt that he was very familiar. The face could be changed at will, but a person's actions and charm were difficult to change. Jiang Tian was sure that he had definitely seen this person in his previous life. However, Jiang Tian had lived for a long time in his previous life and had lived for 10,000 years. He had seen countless cultivators, mortals, immortals, and gods. Jiang Tian couldn't be sure of the origin of this person for a while. I'm late. The white-robed deity sighed faintly. He was tired and gloomy. He sat down on the Dao platform and looked around. He looked around and said, I met the Star Glory Federation's Vulture Galactic Hunting Team. They were led by the King of Refining, Shuofeng. Back on Neptune, he almost detected my soul and my identity with the crystal camera of discernment. What a close shave. The Star Glory Federation has experts who came to the solar system and to Neptune. Jiang Tian was shocked. This was a very developed cultivation civilization in the central galaxy deep in the universe. Their refining technology was even more famous in the galaxy. They could create battleships that could surpass the speed of light, cross the universe, and destroy stars and even galaxies. In his previous life, he had traveled to this planet after he became an immortal. At that time, the Annihilators led the invasion of the Devil race. Jiang Tian and the chairman of the Star Glory Federation, Hongxing Celestial Venerable, formed an alliance and fought a 100-year war against the Annihilators. The Vulture Galactic Hunting Team, later the Vulture Galactic Expeditionary Force? Jiang Tian thought carefully and his expression changed. The Vulture Hunting Group was famous, powerful, and had an extremely high status. Almost all of them were cultivators above the nascent soul stage. Riding on interstellar battleships, they investigated and hunted down the Annihilator and his henchmen across the entire universe. They were directly responsible to the Federation leader. The names of everyone who had sacrificed themselves would be carved on the monument of heroes of the Star Glory Federation and on the last page of the national scripture that they recited every day for people to remember. In the beginning, this hunting group was very small, but after accumulating countless merits, their position became more and more important, and they continued to expand, becoming bigger and bigger. Hundreds of years later, it even expanded into an interstellar expedition army with hundreds of millions of members. Every one of them was an elite of the Federation. This army also became the most famous interstellar army of the Star Glory Federation. According to the time, this is only the initial phase of the Vulture Hunting Group. Zhuofeng, the king of refining, had once seen his name on the Monument of Heroes when I was traveling to the Star Glory Federation after passing the tribulation and becoming an immortal in my previous life. According to the records at that time, he died in a nameless place. The warship he was on lost contact with his mother planet, and his body was never found. He was a real genius in refining, and his strength was unparalleled. A lot of information flashed in Jiang Tian's head. This Zhuofeng had an extraordinary background and was exceptionally talented. Be it in cultivation, combat, or refining, he had broken many records and dominated an entire era. His attainments in refining were especially profound and his creativity was very strong. Not only did he inherit the classical refining theories, he also carried forward the past and pioneered the modern refining lineage. He had invented a lot of far-reaching military and civilian magical equipment that would benefit the future generations. Even hundreds of years later, when Jiang Tian arrived in the Star Glory Federation, the magical equipment was still in use and did not lag behind at all. Originally, he had a lot of properties and wealth in the Star Glory Federation. He was one of the most famous and respected people in the Star Glory Federation, just like Bill Gates and Brother Ma on Earth. However, when the Annihilators began their invasion, he abandoned all the worldly glory and enjoyment and donated half of his assets to the country. He also joined the army and started as a private. He established the Vulture Hunting Group and became one of the 3 founders and founding members of the Vulture Hunting Group. Mr. Ambassador, are you hurt? The thought flashed in Jiang Tian's mind for only a moment before he heard Gu Hu ask with concern and anxiety. I'm fine. The deity in white replied casually, I'm on Neptune. When I was on Neptune, I destroyed many of their battleships and almost wiped out this hunting team. Then, I rushed to Earth. Zhuofeng was the only one left alive. However, Zhuofeng was quite crazy. Even though he was heavily wounded, his spiritual embryo was destroyed by my secret arts, and his nascent soul was half dead, he still wanted to kill me. I'm afraid that Zhuofeng is in trouble. Hearing that, Jiang Tian shook his head with a bitter smile. He rode on a mount and brought a warrior with him, and he wanted to cross the void to hunt me down. That's crazy. As he expected, the deity in white said disdainfully, however, Zhuofeng was only a nascent soul cultivator. He needs to ride a starship to travel across the universe. He wanted to catch me across galaxies with his physical body. Wasn't he daydreaming even if he wasn't hurt? He couldn't withstand the vacuum environment. His body exploded several times. Although he chased me to Earth, he was already exhausted. I fought with him for 6 hours. Finally, I killed him with one punch above Hua Xia's Yan Jin. He sneered and said, that old man wanted to kill me. That old bastard still wanted to possess someone else's body to be reborn and preserve his roots. Seeing that his god's soul was incomplete, I ignored him. Even if he succeeded, he would only be a lunatic. He'd rather die. His servant and mount also ran away when they saw that the situation wasn't good. But I was in a hurry, so I didn't chase after them. I just erased their memories and left them to fend for themselves. At this point, the divine envoy sighed regretfully. Ah, what a pity. Zhuofeng's mount is still young, but it has a good bloodline. It can be of great use in the future. However, that's not worth mentioning. How's the Khanate fiend infant? From the beginning to the end, the white-robed god's tone was filled with deep disdain and cynicism. It was as if he didn't care about the life and death of billions of people. It was only at this moment that his tone became more serious and concerned. The Khanate fiend infant has been successfully nurtured with the spirit chi of planet destruction. It's perfect and can probably reach the level of star swallowing. Gu Hu said respectfully with an expression of flattery and showing off his achievements. I knew it. The deity in white remained motionless and didn't cast any spells or secret arts. However, his immortal will could already cover half of the Earth and reach thousands of kilometers underground, even deep into the core of the planet. His voice was filled with deep ecstasy and excitement. Even his hands were trembling violently as he said, "If the Khanate fiend infant is successfully nurtured, the plan that has been in place for 1,000,000 years can be implemented. This universe may be saved and it may even become an immortal universe. Billions of creatures won't turn into nothingness. Why would it save the universe? It's like a mouse guarding its master's house instead of stealing food." Hearing this, Jiang Tian's expression changed slightly. He was greatly astonished. The deity in white, Gu Hu, and the other fiends were obviously henchmen of the Annihilator. One was an immortal cultivator and the other was a fiend cultivator, a human and a fiend, but they all had the same goal. However, the Annihilator's mission was to devour and turn the world and the entire universe into nothingness. All civilizations and lives, even matter, time and space, would become nothingness and death. Such an outcome was even more terrifying than the collapse and chaos caused by the fiends. After all, matter would still exist no matter how chaotic and collapsed the fiends were. As long as civilization still existed and time was still flowing, all matter would be used again to add to civilization. However, Jiang Tian couldn't think about that right then, nor did he need to. After all, what the deity in white said might not be true. Jiang Tian had lived for 10,000 years in his previous life, so he wasn't surprised. Almost every organization and force, from the small sects, academies, and countries to the big ones like the Federation, the constellations, the space zones, and even a civilization, would find a righteous reason for their actions. They would shout a few slogans to confuse and deceive the people. Nobility was the epitaph of the noble, and despicableness was the passport of the despicable. This saying seemed reasonable, but it was actually very wrong. Most of the time, despicableness was the epitaph of the noble, and nobility was the passport of the despicable. History was written by those in power, and the slogans of the people were also controlled by them. In this world, it was difficult to distinguish between good and evil, true and false. Whoever said that he controlled the truth of history was an idiot. Soon, the deity in white made several hand seals and activated the restriction runes on the platform. He was about to jump down. Gu Hu stood up and bowed humbly. "Lord Envoy, let Ayu accompany you down." "Ha, you want to give Ayu to me as a hostage so that I can rest assured? That's thoughtful of you, but to be honest, there's no need for that. I was the one who created this restriction rune for you. How can it stop me?" The deity in white laughed loudly, giving off a domineering feeling that he was looking down on the world. Jiang Tian heard himself say respectfully, "Lord Envoy, I have been looking forward to destroying the planet for a long time. Please grant me my wish." This was naturally Ayu's voice. Jiang Tian instantly understood that Ayu wanted to get close to the planet to obtain great blessings and nourishment. Chapter 1281. At that time, the spirit qi in the world was so thin that star destruction had also fallen asleep and stopped devouring. As a Dharma artifact, it would consume a certain amount of spirit qi every time it devoured. At that time, star destruction wouldn't be able to devour much spirit qi. Instead, it would consume a lot of spirit qi. It would be better for it to fall asleep and wait for the spirit qi to change. However, even if it fell asleep, it still had half of the spirit qi on ancient earth, so it would release a lot of spirit qi and spirit qi. The Tungus devils had risen from the ashes by absorbing the overflowing spiritual energy of planet destruction thousands of kilometers away. Their strength had increased, and they were far stronger than the other secret realms and alien races. They dominated the entire Earth sector. If he could absorb the spirit qi and spirit qi of star destruction at a close distance, even if it was only for a short while, it might allow you to reach the limit and become stronger. Please grant my wish. Lord Envoy, please give us a chance because we've been guarding Tungus for tens of thousands of years. Gu Hu and the other old demons were also begging for mercy. They knelt down again and kowtowed to Lin Fan. All right. You've been guarding this remote place for so many years and even went through the cruel battle of deities. I'll take him down there. The white-robed deity smiled indifferently and suddenly raised his hand to grab at the air. Jiang Tian felt the scenery in front of him shake violently, changing constantly. The next moment, Boom! There was a loud noise. Yu was grabbed by the white-robed being and taken deep into the ground. The scene in front of him was extremely shocking. The strength of the white-robed being was at least at the soul formation level, or even higher. Jiang Tian instantly came to a conclusion. The danger and the harsh environment inside the planet were actually not much weaker than the void of the universe. Even nascent soul cultivators wouldn't dare to set foot there. He didn't rely on any protection Dharma treasures or Dharma artifacts, he only relied on his own Dharma power and physical strength, like a whale splitting a giant wave. Sizzle. Jiang Tian saw a true essence shield 1,000 meters in front of the white-robed being. Even a nuclear coalian wouldn't be able to break it. It firmly blocked the hot and red magma outside. With the white-robed deity as the center, the surging magma was split apart like a huge wave, rapidly flowing backwards. In the middle, countless crystals that contained enormous energy and were comparable to nuclear weapons exploded. There were also giant skeletons that were 1,000 feet tall and had been immortal for thousands of years in the scorching magma. They slashed at Chen Fan with long weapons and giant axes. However, these attacks did not cause any substantial damage to the white-robed emissary's true essence shield. In fact, Yu didn't even feel any heat or discomfort. Whoosh! Whoosh! In just half an hour, the white-robed envoy had brought Yu several thousand meters underground. Star destruction was already in sight. Even the current Jiang Tian couldn't keep up with this kind of speed. His opponent was at the soul formation stage or even higher. He might be a return to void stage or Dao integration stage cultivator. The disparity in power was too great. During this time, Yu had been constantly circulating his demonic arts, madly absorbing the overflowing spiritual energy. However, at this moment, Jiang Tian heard the voice of the white-clothed envoy, who didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This kid is actually drunk spirit. As expected, Yu's vision turned black and he fainted. A blank space appeared in Yu's mind, as if he had fallen into a deep sleep. The so-called drunk spirit was a situation where a cultivator's body, spirit, and chi and blood could not adapt to the increase of spiritual energy from a place with low spiritual energy to a place with high spiritual energy. It would result in dizziness and unconsciousness. Originally, he wanted to further understand the situation of star destruction, but he didn't expect such a situation to occur. This Yu was too useless. Jiang Tian could only shake his head helplessly and continue to flip through Yu's memories. Envoy, this demonic infant is too terrifying. Quickly suppress it. Spare me. Spare me. Don't eat me. After a scene of Yu waking up and being taken care of by his family, Jiang Tian heard a series of screams and exclamations coming from outside, as well as the sound of collapsing buildings, rocks, and water bursting. Originally, the Tungus demons were an extremely terrifying race. They killed people like flies and were unrestrained even in the mythological era. However, at this moment, they were like little white rabbits facing a prehistoric Tyrannosaurus rex, filled with endless fear. Jiang Tian was also very curious. Fortunately, Yu forced himself to endure the discomfort of his body and went out to take a look. The scene in front of him was extremely terrifying. He saw a huge baby. It was extremely tall, at least 3,000 meters tall. It was wearing a red dudu, had a wooden comb back, and 2 upturned hairpins. It was actually a baby girl. The huge baby girl was chubby and looked like she was carved out of jade. She was very cute, but considering her terrifying size, it made one's hair stand on end. Endless black demonic aura surged around her, turning into pillars of demonic aura that swept in all directions. The evil aura covered the underground demonic lake within a radius of 100 miles. Countless huge demon corpses floated around the baby girl. All of them had broken limbs, heads, and waists. Some only had half of their bodies left, or their internal organs had been dug out. Many demon soldiers, generals, and commanders were helpless. They hid behind bunkers, cowered in the fortifications, or in the depths of the palaces. Cold sweat poured down their foreheads like waterfalls as they screamed in fear. Even Gu, who was uneasy, as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Only the white-robed emissary remained calm and watched coldly from the side. The huge baby girl crawled and danced in the air. She mumbled, so hungry, I need to eat something. She grabbed a demon general and twisted his head off. She dug out his dantian, grabbed a basketball-sized golden core, and stuffed it into her mouth. She chewed and swallowed it as if she was eating candy. Quickly summon the divine soul of the Eclipse Demon Emperor. Gu Hu shouted. Yes. A few demon generals rushed out and flew to a white bone altar. They chanted obscure demonic spells, turned the array pestle, and activated the array patterns. Roar! How dare you be so presumptuous in my abode, how dare you kill my children? A supreme demon emperor condensed on the white bone altar. He was 1,000 feet tall and looked extraordinarily mighty. Although he was only a divine soul, he was stronger than Gu Hu. According to Yu's memory, Gu Hu was only a low-level demon general under the Eclipse Demon Emperor in the mythological era. In the mythological era, Gu Hu was not even ranked among his peers. He was not outstanding, not to mention compared to this demon emperor. It was like an ordinary soldier meeting the emperor of a country. However, he was lucky to survive and lived a long life. Even if his talent was average, he was getting stronger over time. The Eclipse Demon Emperor was the real ancestor of the Tunguska Demon Lake. He died in the mythological era, but Gu Hu's descendants used the secret demonic arts to carefully protect his divine soul. He had reached the divine transformation realm and his divine soul had turned into the immortal primordial spirit, becoming a true demon god. Therefore, even if he lost his physical body, his destructive power was still extremely terrifying. Paw! The baby girl's fleshy palm slapped down like a cattail leaf fan. With a loud bang, the Eclipse Demon Emperor was slapped into the ground. The mountains trembled and the water at the bottom of the lake became turbulent. It was like a storm had broken out. Many barriers outside the palaces were distorted like balloons. The demonic Eclipse Demonic Emperor's godly soul was shattered into pieces. Many demons were trembling in fear, screaming and wailing in fear. The Eclipse Demon Emperor condensed again and shouted angrily, "Do you know who I am, Paw?" Another slap fell and many palaces collapsed. The palm went deeper and the Eclipse Demon Emperor was shattered into pieces again. He struggled out and said, "I." The baby girl laid on the ground and moved closer. Her black eyes stared at the Eclipse Demon Emperor as she drooled, "The taste of divine soul, I haven't tasted it for a long time. I have to taste it." What? Everyone was shocked as the baby girl opened her mouth wide like a whale sucking in water. She sucked the demon king of Eclipse into her mouth like a ray of light. What kind of demon baby is this? She can naturally absorb the power of divine soul. Lord Envoy, why aren't you saving me? The demon emperor was shocked. After half of his body was swallowed, he struggled to escape. When he condensed again, he had shrunk by more than half. Emissary, save the demon emperor's divine soul. Gu Hu and the other demons were also frightened and screamed in fear. Humph, the demon emperor's divine soul was eaten and turned into nourishment for the demon fetus. It's better than his soul being destroyed. It's his honor. Billions of annihilators will remember your contributions. His name will be eternally known in the galaxy and the universe. The white-robed emissary's tone was cold and emotionless. He said indifferently, "If you want to save him, go ahead. It's okay to kill her as long as you have the ability. Subdue her." Gu Hu was struggling. After hesitating for at least a minute, he suddenly shouted and led many demon generals to attack from all directions. Hundreds of thousands of demons also rushed out from their bunkers and fortresses. It was an all-out attack. At this moment, the chubby baby was crawling around at the bottom of the dark lake with the demon emperor's divine soul in her mouth. She muttered, "The taste of divine soul is still not as good as flesh and blood. At least there's enough of it." At this moment, many demons attacked. They covered the sky and covered the sun. The demons were everywhere within 100 miles. Even the ancient ships flew out. Seeing this scene, Jiang Tian finally realized what was going on. 30 years ago, the Tungus demons were at their peak. There were at least 300,000 of them, and their warships were many times more than now. But when they fought Jiang Tian, there were only a few tens of thousands of them. Then, where did the remaining 200,000 go? Jiang Tian suddenly felt a chill in his heart. He came to a conclusion and quickly looked at the demon fetus again. Chapter 1282. The demonic nascent soul suddenly looked up at the many demon race mighty figures and ships in the sky with a greedy expression. So, the delicious insects are all hiding. She swallowed the remaining demonic eclipse emperors into her stomach. Her body swayed and expanded again. Now, she was almost 10 miles long, standing tall between heaven and earth. His head was especially terrifying. It was as big as a mountain and was disproportionate to his limbs. He had a wide mouth and sharp fangs. His eyes were ferocious and ferocious. His huge palm carried billowing demonic chi and swept towards the demons and the battleships. The enormous hand covered the sky and the sun, stirring up the entire underground lake. Wherever it passed, dozens of battleships, tens of thousands of demon soldiers, demon commanders, countless demon talismans, demon weapons, demon formations, and even cities and fortresses were all turned into black ashes and drifted away, like ink dispersing in the water. The floating black particles were either absorbed by her chubby palms or swallowed by her mouth. Even Jiang Tian was deeply shocked by this scene. He couldn't believe it. He had lived for 10,000 years in his previous life and was very familiar with all kinds of body types in the cultivation world, the deity world, and the deity world. But he had never seen such a terrifying body type. Because she didn't belong to the category of human, deity, or deity. She belonged to the Annihilator. She was a completely different kind of life form. She might not even be a life form. She didn't fear a physical body in the ordinary sense, but a special body of energy with consciousness. This baby girl had just been born. She didn't have any power of laws or spells or divine powers at all. She only used her instincts. She could use all her power as naturally as eating and drinking. But she had such terrifying power, which had already surpassed Jiang Tian's current strength. She was like a real deity. Even among the annihilators, her constitution should be one of the strongest, far surpassing any known saint, immortal, or even divine body. Jiang Tian wasn't sure if the chaos divine body he was going to cultivate was a match for such a body type. What shocked Jiang Tian even more was, some of the ashes and particles had drifted far away and were slowly falling. However, they gathered into streams of black light and were absorbed by the baby girl's arms, legs, or any other part of her body. Every part of her body had an extremely terrifying devouring ability, like a black hole in the universe. She was like a black hole of consciousness. As expected of its seed. He had actually formed the innate 10,000 orifices demon infant, the body of oblivion. Good, good. That's great. You will become the greatest annihilator. You will inherit its soul and cause. You will become the greatest goddess in the universe. The white-robed envoy danced with joy. His eyes shot out 100-meter-long divine radiance and flickered with excitement. He took out a green bird-shaped wine pot and gulped it down. The baby girl was extremely terrifying. In just a few seconds, she had annihilated and devoured more than 200,000 demons. Retreat. Children, back off. Gu Hu was so scared that he pissed and shat himself. He howled miserably like a ghost. Lord Envoy, please suppress them. We can't do it. If we wait any longer, the Tunguska demon lake will disappear completely. At this time, some demons who were older and more powerful than Gu Hu and were even comparable to soul formation cultivators screamed and died. They were devoured. I'm not full yet. I want more. Seeing that the demon ships had retreated, the baby girl burped and sucked her thumb. Saliva dripped from the corner of her mouth. This worm tastes different from the others. I have to taste it. Suddenly, she looked at the white-robed envoy. She clapped her hands and smiled, then she swam toward the white-robed envoy. Even I want to eat it. At this moment, even the high and mighty white-robed envoy jumped in fright. He sneered and said, "That's right. She's a demon among demons, the ultimate demon in the universe." "No, she's not a demon. She's the most powerful annihilator in the universe." Luckily, I brought the Emperor Talisman this time. It's not a problem to seal a little girl like you." He waved his hand and a small talisman flew out from his hand. It was an immortal character, Emperor. The talisman grew bigger with the wind. Countless laws of the Great Tao intertwined and resonated with the Great Tao. The Emperor's power suppressed the 9 heavens and 10 earths. He looked down on billions of living beings and his vast magic power sealed the universe. Finally, the immortal Emperor's sealing talisman flew and imprinted on the baby girl's forehead. Soon, it disappeared. Seeing this, Jiang Tian was shocked again. This is an immortal Emperor sealing talisman. It contains the power of 10,000 worlds. This white-robed envoy has a powerful background. Annoying. How dare you suppress me? Being suppressed by the seal, the demon baby felt that her power was restrained. She was furious and roared unwillingly. She raised her fist and rushed over, punching wildly. The white-robed emissaries' demons were beaten until they vomited blood one after another and were sent flying like rag dolls. The entire underground demonic lake was almost torn apart as it was filled to the brim. However, the sealing power of an emperor's throne was unimaginably vast. The demon baby's body was suppressed until cracking sounds could be heard. She kept shrinking, and her demonic aura was also rolling back. In the end, she turned into the size of a normal baby. She lay on the ground and ate her toes. "I'm hungry. I'm hungry. You didn't even give me a bite to eat. White-robed little worm, I'll eat you sooner or later." The underground demon lake gradually regained its calmness. Many demons crawled out from their bunkers and walked out of the fortress with lingering fear. They looked at the baby from afar and didn't dare to go forward. "Envoy, is this considered sealed?" Gu Hu asked with a trembling voice. He didn't know when his arm had been broken. He quickly used the heavenly demon creation technique. Black demonic runes flickered and quickly repaired the wound. Terrifying. If I were to cultivate for 8 to 10 years, wouldn't I be able to destroy the entire universe? The white-robed envoy was also stained with blood. His bones and tendons were broken, and his body was twisted like a rag. His neck was also broken, and his heel could be seen. He held his head and made a few hand seals to repair his body. He coughed non-stop and spat out a lot of blood and internal organs, but his voice was filled with joy. "I can only say that it's temporarily sealed. It's not enough. Her power is too terrifying. She can break the seal at any time. Even the Emperor-level seal can't suppress her. Terrifying. What should we do?" "Envoy, quickly take her away. Our temple is too small. It can't contain such a great god. It's too dangerous." Gu Hu's heart still had lingering fear. The corners of his eyes trembled, and he couldn't wait to send the god of plague away. "No. I don't dare to take her away. If she breaks the seal, she can even swallow me alive." The white-robed envoy didn't hide his fear at all. He frowned and pondered for a long time. "I'll find a suitable mortal body first and let her live in it as the second layer of suppression. With the sealing power of the immortal Emperor Talisman, it can suppress her for decades. It's not enough. It's not safe yet. This thing is too terrifying. Do you know that we've bred tens of thousands of such demon infants in other places? Even if they're just 9 apertures, they can swallow tribulation stage experts and defeat immortal venerables. This is 10,000 apertures, the strongest among them. The most terrifying one. If I do well, the higher-ups will reward me greatly. If I don't do well, I might be eaten by this demon infant. He paced quickly with his hands behind his back. His hands were constantly forming seals. Apparently, he was calculating and deducing quickly. Then, he said decisively, I have to go back to my mother planet and find a planet-level spaceship or call a few immortal venerables. Only then can I safely take her away. Hand her over to the higher-ups. Finally, he picked up the baby girl and turned into a stream of light that pierced through heaven and earth. He shot straight into the sky and flashed away. These memories were very complicated, but Jiang Tian used his vast divine sense to examine them. It only took him a little more than 10 minutes. Jiang Tian also carefully went through the remaining 20 years of Yu's memories. He even went through the memories of many other devils. However, there was no trace of information about the demon infant and the white-robed envoy in their memories. They even kept it a secret and didn't mention it. Perhaps the white-robed envoy had cast a thought restriction spell on them. Jiang Tian stopped searching the divine sense and pondered for a long time before he gradually calmed down. He used his divine sense to carefully scan the surroundings and found that the cracks were still there. Many buildings had been destroyed, and the Tao patterns of the devil race had been broken. However, these devils were good at creating things and had carefully repaired them. It was very difficult to find them. There were still some slightly annihilated particles left on the ground. Those were the particles of the devil race's mighty figures and spaceships. They were the purest energy particles and were extremely small, even surpassing the quark level. Even when Jiang Tian scanned with his divine sense, he couldn't see them. Suddenly, Jiang Tian had a flash of understanding in his heart. His face was full of shock and suspicion. His eyes shone brightly, and he murmured in a stern voice, could it be that the truth of the destruction of stars is like that? If it's really like that, then it's too scary. Chapter 1283. Earth's history was shrouded in layers of fog. Even now, there were still many unsolved mysteries and inaccuracies. In the ancient mythological era, there was Empress Hua who created mankind, Emperor Fuxi, Suiren, and Shinong who sowed the seeds of civilization. There were incredible beings such as the Annihilator who invaded Earth and fought with humans and demons. There were powerful beings such as Emperor Yu who created the 9 cauldrons to compete with planet destruction for spirit chi. There was Emperor Zhongli who cut through the sky with his sword and destroyed the ancient Star Road. He used the continent as a ship and the Peerless Array as a propeller to start an interstellar wander and expedition to the South Gate twin stars. There was Emperor Ao who set up the immortal trap array from billions of miles away to cover the entire Earth and imprison a star. This was a dazzling and magnificent painting. This was a history of enduring hardships, unyielding, and courageous resistance. It shocked and inspired the hearts of the people. These past events made Jiang Tian feel incredible and subverted many of his old ideas. After all, Earth was a dead star in his eyes. There was no cultivation civilization. However, these were still acceptable to Jiang Tian. In terms of the dimensions of the universe, many lost civilizations and withered planets had once had glory and had given birth to great saints. However, things always go in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme. It was the same for a person. There were always ups and downs, and it was the same for a civilization. However, never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that a powerful cultivation civilization had come to Earth just 30 years ago. There were even famous experts from the Star Glory Federation, and even the White Envoy who had contact with the Immortal Emperor. There was even 1,000 orifices demon infant and a supreme fiend god with a silent body. After all, even in his previous life, Jiang Tian had traveled the endless galaxy, but he had never heard of a legend of a powerful person coming to Earth. He only knew that his master, the immortal sovereign, had come to Earth once, which was when he took him away from Earth. However, there were very few people who liked to travel the universe and set foot in barren lands like his master. Because, in terms of the dimensions of the universe, Earth, the solar system, and even the entire Milky Way were all barren lands. There was too little spiritual energy and an extremely poor environment for cultivation, which was not conducive to the cultivation and survival of cultivators. It was impossible for a strong cultivation civilization to be born there. After 100,000 years, the emissary of the Annihilator has come to Earth again to wait for Planet Destroyer to give birth to the 10,000 Orifices demon infant. It seems that Earth has never left the Annihilator's sight. Jiang Tian's eyes flashed as he pulled himself out of Yu's memories. He frowned deeply and revealed a contemplative expression. Above the heavens, in the deep starry sky, there is a pair of eyes coldly watching Earth. His eyes shone with divine light, and his eyes shone brightly. It's even possible that the Annihilator of the primeval times unleashed planet destruction, led the Grand Cultivators from other domains to Earth, and killed the local Grand Cultivators and Grand Cultivators of the human race and the demon race just so that the 1,000 Orifices fiend nascent soul would be born 100,000 years later. Jiang Tian originally thought. In the primeval times, the Annihilator came to Earth to destroy the cultivation civilization of the ancient Earth, or to create a powerful Dharma artifact. But he didn't expect that it was to create a fiend fetus. Such methods to raise divine fetus, and devil fetus were extremely rare and costly even in the most magnificent cultivation civilizations in the universe. Jiang Tian had lived a long life and traveled the endless universe, but he had only heard of dozens of such arts and had only set them up a few times himself. In his previous life, a good friend of his, the floating celestial emperor, married an ordinary woman and gave birth to a child without any foundation, which could be called the worst of the worst. The floating celestial emperor was so anxious that he jumped up and down, so he could only ask Jiang Tian, who was famous for his array skills, for help. Jiang Tian used this method to secretly raise him inside a stone embryo. He used the blood of countless virtuous paragons to nourish him. He even crushed the bones and flesh of many divine beasts to serve as medicinal ingredients. In the end, Jiang Tian used the spirit energy of many living stars in the sea of stars to nourish him. Just like this, he nourished him for 3,000 years. In the end, the child of the floating celestial emperor broke out of the stone fetus and reached the soul formation level. He became a deity in 600 years and was only slightly weaker than Jiang Tian. This child dominated the galaxy and was invincible. She had killed countless return to void stage and Tao integration stage cultivators before finally ascending to the emperor's throne realm. She was a wise divine lord and was known as Immortal Emperor Nian Chu. Her name hung over the galaxy for several thousand years. He was even more powerful than his father, the floating celestial emperor. He was grateful for Jiang Tian's kindness and called him grandfather. It meant that Jiang Tian had given him a new life and was more important than his father, the floating celestial emperor. Jiang Tian was the first father and the floating celestial emperor could only be second. But no one thought that it was unreasonable. The floating celestial emperor gave him a bloodline, but Jiang Tian rebuilt it for him and turned him from a mortal fetus to a sacred fetus, reaching a different level of life. It was like the floating celestial emperor and his wife had given him the materials, but Jiang Tian was the one who made the materials into art. 10,000 years ago, he didn't hesitate to destroy the spirit chi of an entire planet to give birth to a fiend fetus. That's an earth-shattering plan. Jiang Tian's expression was very solemn. He actually felt a bit emotional. Even though the Annihilator was the common enemy of all creatures in the universe, they destroyed everything. However, one had to admit that there were quite a few people among them who were extremely resourceful, had great foresight, and possessed great talent and bold vision. Wait. Jiang Tian's eyes glittered and his heart raced. The power that the 10,000 Orifices fiend infant just showed is beyond the soul formation level. It's several times stronger than Nian Chu. The spirit chi on ancient Earth had been completely taken away by them and the bloodline of the ancient cultivators was getting thinner and thinner. At the moment, the talented people on Earth, such as Yi Tianren and the 9 elders of Hongmeng, were all ordinary in Jiang Tian's eyes. Even if they were nourished by endless cultivation resources, they could only reach the soul formation level. In terms of real talent and constitution, they weren't even as good as ancestral patriarch True Dragon. After all, Ancestral patriarch True Dragon's dimension also occupied 30% of the spirit chi on ancient Earth, which was enough to preserve their bloodline and continue their civilization. The spirit chi on ancient Earth, even if it was all there, wouldn't be enough to give birth to such a supreme fiend fetus, not to mention that Planet Destroyer only absorbed part of the spirit chi. Jiang Tian suddenly felt a chill down his spine. His sharp eyes pierced through the underground lake, the fiend lake and the clouds to look at the bright stars and the depths of the universe. An unimaginable thought uncontrollably surfaced in his mind. So, the Annihilators might have used other planets? Does that have something to do with the fact that the galaxy became a barren world? If Jiang Tian's idea were to spread, it would definitely shock a lot of people, just like how they couldn't accept the existence of the ruins of deities. But Jiang Tian certainly had his reasons. Even though the formation of life and civilization required all kinds of extremely harsh conditions and the probability was extremely low, there were hundreds of billions of stars in the galaxy and countless Earth-like planets. So, considering the scale of the galaxy, at least thousands of planets with life and hundreds of powerful civilizations should have been born. However, neither the scientific evidence of humans on Earth nor Jiang Tian had seen or heard about any decent civilization in the galaxy when he traveled through the galaxy in his previous life. That was too abnormal. Jiang Tian wondered if it had something to do with the Annihilators deploying Planet Destroyer to Earth. Eradicating the many budding civilizations in the Milky Way in advance and guiding the spirit chi to the ancient Earth would create conditions for the formation of the devil fetus. Secondly, turning the Milky Way into a remote and desolate place would cause the countless cultivation planets in the central galaxy to have no interest in this star field. Then, silently implanting Star Destroyer into Earth to breed the supreme devil fetus, Jiang Tian was shocked. If this theory was true, then the Annihilators' plan to create the fiend fetus would take much longer than Jiang Tian had thought. It might take millions or even tens of millions of years. It was not just the ancient Earth that was involved, but many planets with life, and even the entire Milky Way. This kind of playstyle was simply earth-shattering. Using the sky as a chessboard and the planets as chess pieces, they didn't hesitate to extinguish the spark of civilization in an entire galaxy and turn it into a barren world to cover for the fiend fetus. One fiend fetus and 10,000 planets destroyed. Jiang Tian's scalp tingled and his eyes turned cold. In his previous life, after ascending to the divine realm, he had also destroyed some fiend planets, but the scale of the Annihilators was still terrifying. Chapter 1284. However, all of this was based on Jiang Tian's experience in his previous life. He couldn't be 100% sure. Did he take the 10,000 orifices demonic infant away from Earth or did he leave it there? If she's on Earth, she must be a world-destroying danger. We must find her and eliminate her as soon as possible. The 10,000 orifices demonic infant was too terrifying. She didn't need to cultivate. She had the power of a void return or even a Tao reunion cultivator. She was far more powerful than a soul formation cultivator and could destroy the world. However, if the white-robed emissary used his mortal body to seal this infant, it would be extremely difficult to find her. Jiang Tian frowned helplessly. Even if he reached the nascent soul stage, it would be difficult for his divine soul to cover all the humans on Earth. After all, there were 6 billion people. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack. How could it be that easy? Besides, the white-robed emissary might have taken her to the ruins of immortality or the Southern Gate twin stars. She's already at the soul formation stage. With the help of some aircraft, it's possible for her to cross the void in a few years. Jiang Tian thought for a long time and finally gave up the idea of looking for the 10,000 orifices demonic infant. Firstly, it was unrealistic. There were too few clues. Secondly, it was very likely that she was no longer on Earth. There were two sides to this. He had to be calm. If he worried too much, he would be panicking. The most important thing now was the invasion of the ruins of immortality. If he reached the nascent soul stage in a few years, he could still find a way to kill the demonic infant even if she was still alive. I'd better go underground and see if there are any other clues. At the same time, I have to accurately determine the location of star destruction. Jiang Tian made up his mind and threw a Dharma artifact into the sky. The Dharma artifact quickly rushed out of the Tunguska demon lake and bloomed. Star destruction, I'm coming. Soon after, Jiang Tian grabbed Yu and entered the flat mountain earth drilling all. That all-immortal artifact circled and flew above the Dao platform. Then, it pointed downwards and spun rapidly. Its target was star destruction deep underground. What's that? When Jiang Tian threw out his Dharma artifact, everyone saw a huge disk array rise up into the air like a flying saucer. It gave off a bright light that covered a radius of dozens of miles. Everyone was shocked, and their hearts were filled with fear. If one were to observe it closely, they would discover that the magical equipment was extremely delicate. Many of the components were extremely complicated, and there were a lot of scales on them. They could release rays of light of various wavelengths and release and receive enormous mental waves. The magical artifact released by Jiang Tian was similar to a coordinate anchor. On the one hand, it was connected to the coordinates of the landmarks and the satellite GPS. On the other hand, it was connected to Jiang Tian's consciousness, which allowed it to accurately determine the trajectory of Jiang Tian's movement underground. It was also connected to the secondary anchor, which allowed it to sense the specific location. Earth's technology and cultivation civilization combined to determine the final location of the planet's destruction. Rumble. The flat mountain drilling earth drill spun at lightning speed. It was like a peerless heavenly sword that pierced through tens of thousands of feet of waves. It tore apart the magma and advanced courageously. Ordinary people were bound by the mundane lives of daily necessities. How many of them could raise their eyes to look at the vast universe and the deep starry sky? But compared to the deep universe, although the land under their feet was closer, humans knew even less about it. There were a lot of unknowns and it was very mysterious. At the same time, the vast underground energy was surging. The scorching magma was like an ocean. The earthly malevolent chi was surging, sweeping and tearing. Each of them was strong enough to tear apart a core formation stage cultivator. Even a normal nascent soul stage cultivator would be torn apart if they entered it with their body. There was also an unknown material that was translucent and was spinning like a giant millstone. Its enormous pressure was enough to turn diamonds into liquid. But Jiang Tian had only observed it with his consciousness, it wasn't visible to the naked eye. Even though Yu's divine sense was strong enough, he could only sense chaos and chaos. He could not see anything else. In the thick and scorching magma, in the complicated underground materials, the Pingshan earth drilling drill dived rapidly like a nuclear submarine. When Jiang Tian and the others were thousands of kilometers deep, suddenly, whoosh! A giant blade that was a few hundred meters long slashed towards the flat mountain drilling earth drill without fear of the magma. I told you that there are grand cultivators' bodies here, but you didn't believe me. Do you believe me now? We're doomed. We're dead. Yu yelled in the cabin and tears were running down his cheeks. A dignified young demon king had defeated hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, forcing the Russian emperor into exile. But at the moment, he was trembling like a 3-year-old child and crying. Because the legends about the underground were too terrifying. But from his point of view, it was worth understanding. Jiang Tian was only a fake core cultivator and a nascent soul cultivator, while he was only a peak stage golden core cultivator. He might be able to stay safe with the help of the Dharma artifact. But once the Dharma artifact was destroyed, it would sink into the magma and turn into powder under the high temperature and pressure. His ancestor, a nascent soul overlord, had tried to enter the underground to cultivate near planet destruction, but he had been burned to ashes. Jiang Tian's spiritual sense had long anticipated this. He agilely controlled the mountain-crushing earth drilling all, drawing a beautiful arc and brushing past the blade. Jiang Tian was certain that his slash could definitely slice through numinous treasures and destroy thousands of feet tall mountains. Jiang Tian immediately sensed that there was a tall existence standing in the magma, like a demon or a god. More than half of the armor on his body had been corroded by the lava. Many parts of his body had also rotted and turned into white bones. His eyes shot out thousands of meters of divine light that pierced through the lava and blasted away the earth fiend. It was extremely terrifying. He held the saber with both claws, and his fingernails were as sharp as bone hooks. He had the aura of a man who could hold back 10,000 men. Compared to its mountain-like body, Jiang Tian's mountain-crushing drill was as small as a speck of dust. You still dare to come? You're courting death. This humanoid giant's black hair danced in the wind, and he was domineering. Flames shone on his armor, and his saber aura was terrifying. His spirit embryo had already turned into a divine treasure, and it contained a primordial spirit. It was a god in the human realm. Although the primordial spirit was tattered and on the verge of death, it still proved that he was a soul formation realm strong practitioner. A god in the devil race? Jiang Tian scanned with his spiritual sense, and he frowned. A trace of seriousness flashed past his face. The divine realm was just a realm. After soul formation, one could control the laws of heaven and earth, and form their own domain. They were called gods in the human realm. All skills came from the same source, and all paths led to the same destination. Regardless of whether it was the devil race, the demon race, or the beast race, as long as they reached this realm, they could be called gods. This saber-wielding general had a very small head, and his entire body was covered in black scales. As the scales parted, long green hair emerged from them, and they were suffused with strands of black devil chi. They were like silk ribbons, like a waterfall, and drifted indeterminately. His long green hair and devil chi were not afraid of high temperatures, and even the magma was blasted away. It was obvious that he was not weak. After a closer look, the unknown creature in front of him had indeed reached the soul formation realm. Its spirit embryo had turned into a divine treasure and its divine body was hidden inside. Even if it's a god, it shouldn't be able to withstand it, right? But this also shocked Jiang Tian. According to Yu, this underground creature had existed for countless years. Even a soul formation grand cultivator wouldn't be able to withstand such a cruel environment for thousands of years, he would have been crushed into ashes. Kill, kill, kill. Crush, crush them all. Behind him were some grotesque entities that were half human and half demon. They were tall and intimidating, and their cultivation bases were even lower than Meng Hao's, only in the nascent soul stage. They opened their mouths and roared, revealing sinister fangs. However, they still didn't die. They all had long green hair or red hair. Demonic energy surged and swirled around them. Torrential waves rose from the magma, engulfing the surroundings and rampaging about. However, their eyes were either dull and blank, as if they didn't have much intelligence, or they were filled with dense killing intent, vicious, wild, and overbearing to the extreme, as if they wanted to tear the world apart. There were even many broken ancient ships floating behind them. Calling them ancient ships was just an image. In fact, Jiang Tian could tell that they were some kind of drilling Dharma artifacts, but they were even cruder. They're not good people anyway. Next to him, young fiend King Asua was trembling and his scalp was about to explode. He urged, "We can either retreat or kill them. The one who strikes first gains the upper hand, the one who strikes later suffers. Hurry up. Who are you?" "They're fiends. Brothers, kill them for me." The general's voice was sharp and penetrative. He used his divine treasures to activate his voice, which could be transmitted dozens of miles away. He waved his hand. Immediately, two nascent soul generals walked out and flashed a few miles. They had already adapted to living and moving in the magma. Their murderous aura spread deep underground and their swords created waves of magma that were 1,000 feet tall, moving towards Jiang Tian. They were very powerful and seemed to have been contaminated by the fiends. They weren't afraid of the earth fiend fire and magma. Instead, they could use the magma to enhance their power. One slash was enough to level a mountain 1,000 feet high. In a blink, Jiang Tian was in a perilous situation. Chapter 1285. You're courting death. Jiang Tian's eyes were cold as he snorted. The cauldron of myriad origin that was floating behind the earth drilling drill was activated. A ribbon-shaped initial aura swept out like a heavenly blade. Whoosh! There was a sharp sound. The two nascent soul generals were crushed and turned into ashes. Even their nascent souls were turned into powder and mixed with the lava. Who are you? Demon, die for me. The leading humanoid creature was shocked and shouted angrily. He waved his giant blade and rushed towards Jiang Tian. He slashed with his long blade and the lava was split into two. The lava within 100 miles moved. They were fighting thousands of miles deep underground and their power was slowly released. If they were fighting on the surface, it would cause an unprecedented volcanic eruption. If they were fighting on the surface, this slash would be enough to destroy mountains and rivers, split the earth, flatten everything within 100 miles and destroy all life. So powerful. Jiang Tian's face changed slightly and his pupils contracted. The Ashoka young demon king was scared out of his wits and cried. Although Jiang Tian's body was strong, he only had the strength of 6 fake cores after all. It was already his limit to kill a nascent soul cultivator. It was impossible for him to deal with a soul formation overlord. There was no other way. This was the gap between their strength, an insurmountable gap. He wasn't the only one like this. Even the divine fetus deities nurtured by the immortal sacred grounds would send experts to protect them before they reached the pinnacle of the omnipotent realm, for fear that they would be killed. The reason was simple. It was like a seedling that had the potential to grow into a towering tree, but it was still easy to be destroyed when it was young. The good thing was, Jiang Tian was lucky and had a lot of Dharma treasures. The cauldron of myriad origin flew towards the leading creature. Wherever the giant cauldron passed, the lava was swept away and everything was destroyed, forming an empty area of 10 miles deep underground. Roar! The humanoid creature roared, killing intent surging in its eyes. Its green fur fluttered in the wind as demonic chi rolled out. The powerful demonic chi swept out in all directions, pushing the magma apart and forming a 1,000-meter-wide vacuum ball. It soared into the sky and swept across the 9 heavens and 10 earths, like the birth of a demonic star. I can even kill the Fiend King, solar eclipse. When this saber slashed out, the saber light was dazzling. Endless coldness burst out, as if it could shatter the ancient times. The past, present, and future would all collapse under this saber. The aura that could slay demons and gods was mighty. However, after this slash, the humanoid creature abruptly froze on the spot. The light in its eyes flickered as if it was about to dim. The surging killing intent, battle intent, and demonic aura around it were almost extinguished in an instant. He looked up at the stone cauldron with an extremely sorrowful expression. His voice was low, as if his hope had been shattered and his heart had been shattered. Cauldron of myriad origin. His Majesty's Emperor's divine cauldron. Has Emperor Shin been killed by the Annihilators and the Fiends? He had even forgotten about the myriad origin cauldron that was pressing down on him like a mountain. He no longer feared death and was in a daze. There was only endless sadness and desperation. Who are you? Jiang Tian thought. The cauldron of myriad origin flew to the top of the flat mountain drill and let down strands of primordial energy to protect the surroundings. I'm Ming Ziyu, the general of Emperor Zhongli's excavation army. I've been ordered by Emperor Sheng and Emperor Yu to dig 100,000 feet underground to control or destroy planet extermination. The humanoid creature lowered its head and its voice trembled. Tears came out of its eyes, but they were evaporated by the heat as soon as they came out. It seemed that it had no tears. 3,000 nascent soul cultivators and 400 soul formation grand cultivators have all died. There are only 100 left. Unfortunately, they've been contaminated by fiend chi and cursed, becoming half human, half fiend. We've failed and we've lost our lives. We don't dare to go back. His tears and blood had boiled underground for tens of thousands of years and there wasn't much left. His divine treasures and meridians were filled with fiend chi, but they were forcefully turned into energy by their powerful willpower to support their bodies. You're the remnants of Emperor Sheng. Jiang Tian was shocked and couldn't believe it. Is Emperor Sheng dead? Where's Emperor Yu? Did you kill him? Did the humans on Earth lose in the end? Are our descendants all dead? We should have gone out and killed the last ones. Emperor Sheng won't punish us. Nobody will. Many overlords of the mythological era who had been contaminated by fiend qi cried in despair, like children who had lost their parents. However, they didn't shed any tears. The blood and tears of the heroes had already dried up. Their bodies were all skin and bones, like mummies. Some even turned into skeletons and turned into lava. Their vocal cords had already degenerated and disappeared. Only their nascent souls, primordial spirits and divine treasures were still burning. Although we've been defeated, we'll fight until the last moment for the living beings on Earth. Kill! Ing Ziyu wiped the tears that didn't flow out of his eyes and roared, all soldiers of the digging vanguard, listen up. Don't let them take Planet Destroyer away. Spirit Qi belongs to the living beings on Earth. Fight! We can only fight. Behind us is the hope of the revival of Earth's Spirit Qi. It belongs to Earth and the indigenous gods. We can't let them take it away. More than 100 ancient overlords roared. Rumble. He went all out, his armor flashing and lava flowing out of his 7 orifices. His white bones cut through the lava and his murderous aura surged in all directions. At that moment, they seemed to have returned to the mythological era, to the days when they fought against the Annihilators and the Fiend race. They were fearless and didn't care about their own safety. According to the cruel rules of the universe, the greatest respect for a civilization is to completely destroy it. Jiang Tian's deep eyes flashed and he was slightly moved. They should have been cautious. The Annihilators and any other races in the universe should have been wary of humans on Earth and come to destroy the living beings on Earth. Whether it was the mythological era tens of thousands of years ago or the unknown overlords a few thousand years later, turning the entire galaxy into a dead zone. It was a wise decision. Because the indigenous people on Earth had an extremely strong ability to adapt. They could risk their lives to protect their country, endure endless torture and even humiliation to pass on their civilization, and do their best for a chance of survival. During the mythological era, when Emperor Sheng opened the deity ground and the deity ground to wander the universe, when the gods fought against the invaders from other planets, they died like rain. The guards of the southern gate of heaven who had died tens of thousands of years ago, and Ing Ziyu and the vanguard army, who were digging 1,000 miles underground and were tainted by demonic energy to destroy Planet Destroyer. The living beings on Earth, from the saints and emperors to the soldiers and individual cultivators, all had unyielding blood and tenacious consciousness. They were willing to fight to the end for the survival of the human civilization. Most of the vanguard army were only nascent soul cultivators, and some of them only had crude Dharma artifacts for drilling. They had dared to go deep underground, they were simply courting death. They advanced wave after wave, facing death with equanimity. In the end, they failed. The remaining 100 or so overlords were tainted by demonic energy and cursed, turning into half-human, half-monster monsters. But they still stayed deep underground. Maybe they were waiting for their successors to open a path for them. Maybe they were guarding Planet Destroyer and couldn't take it away or destroy it, but at least they couldn't let the enemy take it away. In short, they were contributing their last bit of strength and wouldn't stop until they died. Such a civilization and race was like a spring that couldn't be pressed. The harder it was pressed, the more powerful it would be. Under the crisis of the end of the world, a huge rebound force, or even a great explosion of the civilization's strength, would be formed and the latecomers would catch up. How could such a civilization not make people scared and vigilant? If such a civilization didn't go extinct, even if there were only a few sparks left, the sparks would ignite the grass, and the grass would ignite the trees. In the end, it would become a prairie fire, illuminating the cruel and bloody dark forest of the universe. Because they were willing to sacrifice themselves for their loved ones, for their descendants, for their homeland and civilization. They would completely burn their lives, even if it was the weakest flame. However, the current situation didn't allow Jiang Tian to feel too much. Jiang Tian hurriedly used his divine sense to send a message. He said respectfully, "Senior, I am Jiang Taichu, the leader of the Myth Alliance. I am not a demon, nor an annihilator. I am a human from Earth. I'm the successor of Emperor Sheng's last wish. I'm here to explore Planet Destroyer and revive the spirit Qi." "Wait." Ing Ziyu raised his hand. "Commander, we can't let him live. Strange. Too strange. If he's not an annihilator, how can he come here? It's better to kill him." Most of the soldiers stopped in their tracks and looked at one another in dismay. Their divine treasures and spirit embryos rumbled, and most of them were still in favor of eliminating Jiang Tian. "Kid, are you lying?" Ing Ziyu asked calmly. "Why do you have Emperor Sheng's Dharma treasure? Why do you have a devil with you?" "I recognize him. He has a very pure Earth Devil bloodline. He came here with the man in white before and took the devil fetus away." "Ah, Senior, listen to me slowly. Emperor Yu is indeed dead, but I don't know if Emperor Sheng is dead yet. But the war is indeed over. I think it's been 100,000 years since I started wandering in the deity ground," Jiang Tian said with a heavy voice and a hint of sadness in his eyes. Chapter 1286. What? We've been asleep for so long. Ing Ziyu and the rest were stunned. They were half dead and half alive. Most of the time, they were asleep and had no way to calculate time. Both the Earth's living beings and the Annihilators suffered heavy losses. Fortunately, the Annihilators left, but the roots and veins of the Earth's living beings were passed down. We started a new era with a new civilization, led by technology and the economy. So, you didn't fail. 100,000 years have passed. You protected Planet Destroyer and defeated the demons and the Annihilator's henchmen. Then, I came to investigate Planet Destroyer. So, you didn't fail. The Earth's living beings reached an agreement to use the Spirit Guiding Formation and the Spirit Creation Well to revive the Spirit Qi and rebuild the glory of Earth. So, you didn't fail. Jiang Tian spoke tirelessly about the great changes in the past 100,000 years. At the same time, he released his Soul Devourer's consciousness and merged it with theirs to share the outside world and his purpose in coming underground. Sensing that Jiang Tian's consciousness was harmless, Ing Ziyu and the rest closed their eyes and felt the information and vivid images in their consciousness. They saw skyscrapers rising from the ground, bustling streets in the city, lights shining like stars, people weaving in and out, and vehicles flowing like rivers. They saw rockets tearing through the sky and shooting straight at bullfights, fighter jets breaking the speed of sound, satellites rising into the sky, submarines sinking to the bottom of the sea, and the launching of sunflower lotuses. They saw people using the internet to communicate with each other from thousands of miles away, vivid and lifelike. They saw a lot of things. Good, this is great. We've won in the end. Some of them smiled in relief while others cried in excitement. The roots of the Earth's living beings are saved. The Annihilators have retreated. But the demons are almost finished. There aren't many left. Most of them were demons, the kind that was good at drilling underground. Their bloodlines were ancient and powerful. Ing Ziyu was a pangolin demon that was countless times stronger than Bai Zhe. Her armor was as hard as iron and her claws were like steel hooks. Beside her were demons with the bloodlines of Xiu, Li, and Zhuang. They all had their own strengths and techniques. In the ancient times, the human race and the demon race coexisted. Emperor Zhongli was a generous and tolerant man, and many of his ministers and generals were from the demon race. There's nothing we can do about it. Ao Huang released the immortal trap Great Formation, and the Earth's spiritual qi dried up. The human race can't hold on any longer. In any case, the retreat of the Annihilators is a good thing. But I remember that not long ago, the man in white came again. He might be a henchman of the Annihilator. That lump of iron can fly. Although we can't cultivate on Earth now and there isn't much spiritual energy left, it's still a pretty good thing to have some tricks up its sleeve. It's useless. Other than the Koalian, their military system, including nuclear weapons, could not be compared to that of the ancient times. He was still outdated. If the Annihilators come again, just 100 of them will be enough to wipe out Earth. Didn't you say that you can revive the spiritual aura? Let's create another cultivation planet. You can't be so pessimistic. They discussed animatedly, and their spirit embryos and divine treasures rumbled as they conversed rapidly. It had been too long since they received information from the outside world. Everything that Jiang Tian showed them was very fresh, and they felt like their world had been turned upside down. Some were worried, while others were inexplicably excited. Crack. Suddenly, a slight cracking sound was heard. Under the high temperature and pressure, the flat mountain earth drilling drill finally couldn't take it anymore, and several shocking cracks started to appear. Mommy, I'm dead, I'm dead. I'm dead. Senior Grand Primordium said not to come in. I'm dead for sure now. Ah, you howled, so frightened that his soul almost left his body. He crawled down and hugged Jiang Tian's thigh, trembling. They were thousands of meters deep underground, and the danger level was not much lower than the depths of space. There were too many unknown dangers that could crush a Golden Core expert. It's going to explode. Let's take a look. Ingziyu and the other ancient powerhouses were also frightened. They paddled the magma and flew to the side of the flat mountain earth drilling drill. They examined it carefully, knocked on it, scanned it with their divine senses, and stroked the complicated talisman arrays, trying their best to repair it. Their faces were full of worry. No, this drilling Dharma artifact is different from ours. We can't do it. The runes are very unfamiliar, and the components are completely different. Using crystals as energy is a completely different idea from using spiritual energy. It seems to be the way of Gu Tianzhu. Retreat, retreat quickly. Brother Grand Primordium, wait until you reach the divine transformation stage. No, it's best to reach the legendary void return stage. This place is dangerous. They also wanted to help Jiang Tian repair the cracks, so they were flustered. However, the results were minimal. This was not something they could handle at all. We're almost at the destination. How can I retreat? I'll do it. Jiang Tian was in the cabin. He shouted, his fingers forming a seal, and the spirit creation technique was activated. Pa pa pa. Jiang Tian slapped a few times, and the seventh metal true essence formed a repair rune, flickering and floating on the cracks, quickly repairing the cracks, and soon it was as good as new. Amazing. What kind of method is this, using runes to repair itself? I've never seen it before. This kind of rune is a self-generating and transforming rune. It can repair the cracks and extract substances from the magma as supplements. It's very advanced. I've never seen it on Earth. Even the heavenly workers can't do it. What a wonderful work. What a wonderful work. Fellow Taoist Grand Primordium is clever and skillful, the younger generation will surpass us in time. Sure enough, the student is better than the master. Many of the soldiers and generals of the ancient digging vanguard army were shocked. They surrounded the drill and looked at it in amazement. They had a whole new level of respect for Jiang Tian. This method of yours is too heaven-defying. Ah, Yu was so shocked that his chin almost fell to the ground. His eyes were dull, and he couldn't believe it. This drill was a quasi-true weapon. The runes formed an array, and the construction of the magical equipment was very complicated. It would take at least 10 days to half a month to repair it, and it would also need the help of tools. However, Jiang Tian could completely repair it with a few waves of his hand. It was like a big joke. Not good. However, Jiang Tian's face sank, and he secretly shouted. This flat mountain drilling drill had 4 sets of reactors and thrusters. However, hot magma had just entered the cracks, and 2 of them had collapsed. This kind of collapse was not as simple as the rune arrays, but the collapse of the whole thing. It was like an engine that had exploded, and it had to be repaired. If they forced it to move, the speed would be almost half of the original. Moreover, no one could say for sure when the other reactors and thrusters would also collapse. If that happened, they would lose their lives here. Brothers, don't waste time. Ing Ziyu said loudly. Help fellow cultivator Tai Chu move forward and figure out the precise location of planet destruction. Otherwise, the recovery of spirit chi will be nothing but empty words. Yes. The remnants of the vanguard army unleashed their vast power at the same time. Some of them turned into pangolins, some into lili, swine, fire qilin, and earth mouse. They pushed, pulled, and carried the drill deep into the ground without caring about their own safety. Go! Come on! For the recovery of spirit chi. For our home on earth. For the 6 billion living beings, for our descendants, work hard. In the crimson lava flood, their spirit embryos and divine treasures were like worn-out bellows as they shouted, roared, and cheered each other on. Like crazy devils, their feet didn't stop as they rushed into the depths. The speed of the flat mountain drilling drill suddenly increased, even faster than before. It shot into the earth's core like a whistling arrow. After another 1,000 or so li, a long belt of skeletons appeared 10 kilometers ahead. It was a vast expanse of white, boundless, and shocking to the eye. Thousands of huge skeletons floated in the magma torrent, bobbing up and down. There were demons, devils, and human cultivators who had already turned into white bones. Among the skeletons, broken weapons, broken warships, and damaged magical equipment were everywhere, too. The endless skeletons and broken weapons formed a vast wasteland that stretched as far as the eye could see. It was at least 10 kilometers away. Many of them were at the level of true weapons. They were incomparably sharp, and their magic power fluctuations were strong. They could split mountains, break cities, and split the sky. Jiang Tian's heart palpitated. This was an ancient battlefield where the gods and devils of earth had fought. Chapter 1287. Let's go, brothers. Advance army, there's no retreat, only forward. For our future generations. For the living beings on earth. Let's fight side by side. Impassioned shouts kept coming from the skeletons, as if ancient ferocious beasts were roaring. It was shocking. They had been dead for tens of thousands of years, turning into piles of bones. Their organs and vocal cords had long disappeared. Their spirit embryos and divine treasures were still rumbling, and their nascent souls and essence spirits were still shouting. As they got closer to the core of the earth and as they dived deeper, the temperature, pressure, earth fiend, and earth fire became more terrifying. At this time, it was already very difficult for the remnants of the advance army to move forward. Some of the magma was colorful and looked very beautiful. However, it was extremely corrosive. Spirit treasure level armors and weapons would be corroded, and their bones would be turned into ashes instantly. Some of the substances were very magical and seemed to be able to devour their souls, causing them to be in extreme pain and scream miserably. However, the screams of the skeletons and the screams of the remnants of the vanguard formed a soul-stirring echo. Let's go. Let's fight side by side. The shouts of the skeletons seemed to bring endless motivation to the remnants of the advance army. More than 10 nascent soul cultivators could no longer bear it. However, they still didn't hesitate to burn their spirit embryos and divine treasures. Even if they were turned into ashes, they still pushed the earth drilling drill forward. Their consciousness and souls have long been destroyed, but for some reason, they often shout, especially when we pass by. Ing Ziyu was moved. It's obsession. Jiang Tian looked around and was moved. An obsession that hasn't dissipated for 100,000 years. The obsession to find the planet destruction, the obsession to control the fate of our home. Jiang Tian saw that many of them were still in the posture before they died. It was a kind of posture of advancing. They endured the pain, gritted their teeth, bent their backs, stubbornly burning with passion, and advanced, and advanced. They were the sacrifices of the earth-digging advance army. Before the 2 stars of the South Gate, Emperor Sheng Zhongli and the other ancient sages decided to wander. They sent out 3,000 mighty figures to form the earth-digging advance army to dig out the planet destruction and wander with them to preserve the roots of human civilization. If he couldn't take it away, then he would destroy it. He definitely couldn't leave it for the annihilators or the experts from the outer realms. However, the mission was extremely dangerous and the chances of survival were slim. The Qing Emperor and the others decided that they would not force anyone. Instead, they would let the cultivators sign up themselves. Instantly, hundreds of thousands of cultivators fearlessly volunteered. In the end, these ancient elites were carefully selected. Each of them had reached the nascent soul level or even the soul formation level. Each of them had once dominated an area and controlled a country or a sect. However, in order to survive and protect the roots and veins of Earth's civilization, they chose to sacrifice themselves, excavate the Earth, and search for the destruction of planets. They had to endure the high temperature and pressure of the underground lava, as well as the Earth-fiend poison gas. They also had to endure the interception and attacks of the supreme demons. Their comrades were sacrificed one after another, but they were not afraid. They continued to advance without stopping until they were only a few hundred kilometers away from star destruction. In the end, they failed on the verge of success. Some of them ran out of blood essence and vitality, and even their souls were destroyed, turning into dry bones. Some of them perished together with the intruders and the interceptors, sleeping thousands of kilometers below the ground, unknown to anyone. 3,000 warriors had dug tens of thousands of feet into the ground to rest here. For 100,000 years, their corpses and bones had existed forever. Their obsessions were undying, and their cries were as magnificent as a song. Demonic nature, too demonic. Aren't they human? Why are they not afraid of death? Why are they still shouting after death? His divine soul was gone, yet he was still shouting, still shouting. You are the demons. You are unreasonable. Young King Ashoka trembled in fear and howled miserably. I finally understand why my ancestors failed even though they were clearly stronger. His eyes were dull, and he had a faint smile on his face. He was neurotic. This kind of consciousness was terrifyingly powerful. Even if their souls were gone, they had already turned into some kind of illusory substance. However, that kind of terrifying spirit and consciousness could not be erased even after tens of thousands of years. It was burning fiercely, shining, struggling, and waiting. It was desperately trying to communicate with the latecomers and encourage them. Charge! Continue, forward! The body of another mighty expert of the vanguard collapsed and was swallowed by the scorching magma. He used the last of his strength to push the earth drill and shouted. The muscles at the corner of Jiang Tian's eyes twitched, and he said in a low voice, Yingziyu, retreat. I still have 2 reactors and thrusters. There is still hope to get close to star extermination. I have already sensed that there are only a dozen or so kilometers left. No. Yingziyu's green hair fluttered, and the scales on his skin cracked and melted. His face was also full of cracks like broken porcelain. However, his divine treasures were still rumbling, and he shouted himself hoarse, don't use the earth drill anymore. Even if we die, we will ensure that nothing happens to you. Marshal, are you here? Are you going to look for star extermination? I have waited for too long. Suddenly, the white skeleton stood up with difficulty. They struggled and swayed as they saluted Yingziyu with cupped fists. Brothers. I am pushing our latecomers to look for star extermination deep underground. Yingziyu looked pained. Where is the 8th Route Army of the Vanguard? Follow me to battle. A general who only had one leg left hopped under the earth drill and pushed with all his strength, roaring loudly. General, we are here. Battle! Battle! The army behind us is finally here. More skeletons stood up and staggered forward in joy, fighting to be the first to push the earth drilling drill. Where is the 1st Route Army? Sleep. Sleep my ass. Get up and push the cart. The 2nd Route Army can't fall behind. Don't embarrass me. Get up. Get up. That's my thigh. Why did you take it away? Give it back to me. Yours would have melted a long time ago. They were only skeletons left. There was no flesh on their bodies at all. Their nascent souls and primordial spirits were only shadows. Their magic power was weak, but their obsession was undying. When they heard the call, they stood up and called out to each other. Some of them took other people's thigh bones and put them under their crotch, causing a dispute. But soon, they formed an army of 3,000 skeletons. Their divine treasures rumbled, their spirit embryos trembled, and their broken primordial spirits and nascent souls erupted with vital chi, turning into big hands, wings, and torrents that pushed the earth drill forward. Senior, retreat. Retreat to a safe place. Go to Tunguska Devil Lake. There are no more enemies there. Jiang Tian shouted and gradually clenched his fists. In the silent cabin, there was a cracking sound, as if two golden cores were being crushed. Take care, grand beginning. Have a safe journey. Comrades, I'm counting on you. Ingziyu and the others retreated, tears of blood rolling down their cheeks. One day, I will get rid of the Annihilator, the culprit who destroyed the ancient cultivation civilization. But Jiang Tian's blood was boiling. One day, I will wake you up from the abyss of chaos and see the glory you have created with your own eyes. A surge of fighting spirit rushed to the top of his head, as if it could pass through half of the earth, straight to the sky, straight to the bull. Finally. Half an hour later, Planet Extermination was in sight. Planet Extermination was as bright as a gem, glittering and translucent. Endless spirit chi was boiling around it. Jiang Tian's perception from Ayu's memories was still a bit blurry. When he saw it with his own eyes, he found that Planet Extermination was a few hundred kilometers wide. Jiang Tian's immortal will couldn't see the end of it at all. Planet Extermination was an irregular polyhedron, almost like a sphere. It was emitting a bright light, making people unable to look at it directly. There were also hundreds of auxiliary array disks floating around it like planets, creating effects such as space sealing, spirit gathering, strangling and hallucinating. Everything that got close to it would be killed. Between the formation disks, black demonic chi, multicolored spiritual chi, and baleful aura took the form of ribbons, sheets, threads, and feathers. They changed rapidly as they whistled and gushed out, pushing the lava out by over 50 kilometers and forming a vacuum. The magma was rolling, but it couldn't get close. Only Planet Extermination remained motionless. It was as steady as a rock, as if it were an ancient planet that had existed since the beginning of time and nothing could shake it. Jiang Tian and the 3,000 skeleton warriors of the vanguard were like a bunch of ants in front of Planet Extermination. Chapter 1288. It's still immortal after 100,000 years. How terrifying. Jiang Tian was a bit surprised. He even saw it. Planet Extermination was moving slightly as if it was breathing. From one of its spots, dense spiritual energy was gushing out like a tide. There was also a giant placenta a few hundred meters wide under the nozzle. Although the placenta was already empty, there were still 13 umbilical cords wriggling like pythons. That was where the fiend infant was born. This placenta can give birth to a sacred prince, a deity fetus and a divine infant. Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with greed and his heart was beating fast. After he obtained the darkest stone tablet, the Dinghai pearl and the blood of the ancestor, Kuanpeng, he had been considering whether to form the chaotic golden core and build the chaotic divine body. However, he didn't do it right away. The chaotic divine body was the most powerful body in the universe, much more powerful than normal deity bodies and divine bodies. It would require a lot of spirit chi to complete it. Even though Jiang Tian had 6 divine-grade fake elixirs and many divine materials, he wasn't 100% confident. He wanted to form the chaotic golden core in another dimension or the ruins of deity. However, if he used star destruction, he could increase the probability to the point where there was almost no chance of failure. Star destruction contained too much spirit chi and energy. It contained more than half of the spirit chi on ancient Earth and even the spirit chi of other planets. Even if Jiang Tian used it to create the chaotic divine body, he would only use less than 1/10 of it, or even less. But in the end, Jiang Tian still didn't use the placenta and star destruction to cultivate and break through. Because Qing'er was about to give birth and he couldn't wait any longer. He had to revive the spirit chi. He couldn't wait any longer. I'll revive the spirit chi first. Star destruction isn't a normal spirit gathering Dharma artifact. Even if I use the 9 dragons guiding array, I'm afraid there'll be some left. Then, I'll go underground again and cultivate here. Jiang Tian quickly made up his mind. If star destruction's spirit chi was completely sucked dry, he wouldn't be able to form the chaotic golden core. Jiang Tian didn't care. As the old saying goes, nothing is more important than a wife and children. Jiang Tian made up his mind. He didn't dare to stay here for too long because the mountain could be destroyed at any time. Leave the secondary anchor behind, let's go. Chi. With a thought from Jiang Tian, an array disc-like artifact flew out of the myriad origin cauldron and attached itself to star destruction. Go. Let's go. Let's go. Many white bones of the vanguard pushed Jiang Tian's mountain-crushing earth-drilling drill, whooshing toward the sky as fast as lightning. In just 2 or 3 days after Jiang Tian defeated the Tunguska demon lake, the entire earth was turned upside down. The Assyrian king of the Tower of Babel, the new king of Atlantis, Geoffrey, the pharaoh king of the Black Pyramid, and the king of divine elephants on the banks of the Ganges River all rushed to express their loyalty to Jiang Tian. Atlantis was once suppressed by the kingdom of heaven and became a lost civilization. They could only live in seclusion at the bottom of the sea, unable to see the light of day. It can be seen that the dimensional world is hostile to our civilization. Only under the leadership of the Taichu Alliance can we recover spirit chi and strengthen ourselves. Only then can we resist the invasion of the dimensional world. Otherwise, the civilization of Earth will repeat the same mistakes and become a second Atlantis. In the Spanish Bay, exquisite golden cities emerged from the sea. Geoffrey and his mother walked to the top of the castle and expressed their allegiance to Jiang Tian and the mythological alliance through the media. Their words were humble and their attitude was very sincere. Geoffrey even expressed his willingness to recognize Jiang Tian, the enemy who killed his father, as his father. He was heartbroken about AMU's rebellious behavior of waging war against Jiang Tian. Regardless of whether Jiang Tian agreed or not, he unilaterally announced that he was Jiang Tian's adopted son and shouted excitedly. "My adopted father has shown my people the hope of rising again. Long live the humans of Earth. Long live the recovery of spirit chi. Long live my adopted father Kang Te-chu. The civilization of Earth will never decay." Obviously, the leader of the Taichu Alliance is the savior and hero of mankind. The Assyrian king of the Tower of Babel seemed to have forgotten that he had declared war against Jiang Tian. Facing the media, he said sincerely, "Only the leader of the Taichu Alliance can save the civilization of Earth. No one else can do it. He is the only hope of mankind." The sinner Assyrian is willing to lead the descendants of ancient Babylon to join the mythological alliance. We will unite around the leader of the Taichu Alliance and fight for Earth. We will fight for the ruins of immortality and sacrifice our lives. Then, the masters of the Egyptian pyramids, the banks of the Ganges River in India, and other secret realms also expressed their loyalty to Jiang Tian. Some patted their chests loudly, and some cried bitterly, saying that they had been bewitched and threatened by Tungus before. They had always been hardcore fans of the leader of the Taichu Alliance. The masters of the secret realms of ancient Babylon, ancient India, ancient Huaxia, and ancient Egypt have all bowed their heads to Kang Te-chu. This time, the leader of the Taichu Alliance has really dominated the world. Hera sighed meaningfully. The establishment of the global mythological alliance. No one can stop the recovery of spirit chi. Around her, many martial artists and superpowered people nodded in agreement. Their eyes were full of certainty. Not only these masters, but even the mortal world, from the heads of state to the commanders of the three armies, to the peddlers and pawns, had also realized this. One Tungus could destroy Russia, one Black Pyramid could overturn Egypt, but Jiang Tian had suppressed them all in an hour. Under Jiang Tian's control, many big countries were just small places that could be crushed at any time. In front of Jiang Tian, the heads of state could only bow their heads and keep quiet. Kang Te-chu is so powerful. He can subdue the ancient civilizations. He is so great. At this time, billions of people around the world were exclaiming and praising. In the mortal world, Jiang Tian had countless fanatical fans and believers. Many people called him Star Lord Jiang, Realm Master, God of Taichu, Ruler, and so on. It meant the Lord of the planet and the leader of the world. But even more people called him Savior. These ancient civilizations all support Kang Te-chu. It can be seen that Kang Te-chu's recovery of spirit chi is very correct. Someone said in hindsight. Lotus Tathagata represents the ancient Indian civilization, the pre-Qin famous families represent the ancient Huaxia, and now the ancient Babylon civilization also supports him. Of the four ancient civilizations in the world, only the forces of ancient Egypt don't have support. It can be seen that Kang Te-chu is indeed a man of great talent and strategy. An anthropologist said with certainty. But when Jiang Tian came back, it was much, much faster than when he left. Whoosh! After only a few hours, Jiang Tian's Dharma artifact came out of the Tunguska Fiend Lake and landed on the ground. When Jiang Tian appeared in front of everyone again, the news spread like lightning across the entire world. Billions of people were in an uproar. The god of Taichu is back. Our leader is back. When they saw Jiang Tian coming, the leaders of the Earth Defense Coalition Army and the leaders of various countries had already been waiting around Tunguska. The people of Tianqing School and the members of the Myth Alliance were even more ecstatic at this moment. Welcome, leader of the Taichu Alliance. Countless martial artists around the world, including the old monsters of the secret realms, gathered there and knelt down. The rolling sound waves rushed into the sky, shocking people. We welcome the return of the Savior. Even the leaders of the major countries except Huaxia knelt down to Jiang Tian and worshipped him respectfully. This scene was transmitted to billions of people around the world through cameras and screens. It was especially shocking and dumbfounding. Many people associated this scene with the French President Sun Qi kneeling to Jiang Tian. But the difference was that at that time, Jiang Tian was the saboteur and Sun Qi was full of resentment, and humiliation. And now, Jiang Tian was the savior of the world. Many great figures and leaders prostrated themselves before him, feeling only admiration, sincerity, and willingness. The Tunguska incident fully proved that Kang Te-chu alone had the strength comparable to a country or even Earth. It also let everyone see the beautiful prospects of the recovery of spirit chi and the infinite potential of mankind. This incident directly contributed to the formation of the Global Myth Alliance and the recovery of spirit chi. Kang Te-chu opened the door of evolution for mankind with his own strength and started a new era. The Grand Nirvana era has arrived. Hundreds of years later, the world's leading expert in the history of cultivation, Peter Chen, wrote in his monograph, an overview of the global cultivation civilization. He was not stingy with his praise. Jiang Tian slightly raised his hands and motioned for everyone to get up. Little Tian. Sect Master. Master. Jiang Changgang, Jiang Zhixing, Yi Ziwei, Chen Yang, Shen Mange, and the others had already come to greet him. They were very worried. Jiang Tian went deep underground, which was as dangerous as going into outer space alone. They did not know how Jiang Tian was doing. Jiang Tian looked at these concerned eyes and only felt that the risk of death was worth it. He smiled and said, "Fortunately, I did not disappoint you. The location of planet destruction has been confirmed." This sentence directly made Yi Ziwei, Shen Mange, and the others cry. So far, the most important part of the recovery of spirit chi was completed. The rest would be smooth sailing. If there were any problems, they would only be technical problems. Jiang Changgang nodded and said with relief, to be able to reach the ninth heaven and dare to go underground to explore, my grandson is amazing. There was not much delay. Jiang Tian was worried about Qing'er and soon returned to Sidoni's main training hall. When the husband and wife met, they held hands and looked at each other with tears in their eyes, crying and laughing. It was only at this moment that Jiang Tian was completely relieved. Qing'er and the child could finally be saved. Qing'er's body was fine, but she was about to give birth. Jiang Tian first signed a soul contract with the experts and immediately began to recover spirit qi. A new era was about to arrive. Chapter 1289. It was the eve of the establishment of the Global Mythology Alliance. At the Sidoni International Airport, many Air Force One planes took off and landed. Politicians from all over the world had gathered there. From the Sidoni National Airport to the capital, San Juan, there was a long line of cars that stretched for tens of miles. None of the cars were ordinary. They were all super luxury cars, such as Maseratis and Lamborghinis. Some were low-key and steady, such as BMW and Mercedes-Benz, but they had the logo of foreign envoys. They were the cars of leaders of various countries and famous cultivation sections. The worst ones were the leaders of corporations and CEOs of the Fortune 500. This time, the leaders of the top 5, the famous families of the Qin dynasty, the Assyrian king of the Tower of Babel, the new king of Atlantis Geoffrey, the pharaoh of Egypt and many other overlords gathered here to meet Jiang Tian. Firstly, they congratulated Jiang Tian on getting unprecedented support for his plan to revive spirit qi. Secondly, they congratulated Jiang Tian on becoming the leader of the Global Mythology Alliance, signing a divine soul contract and completely submitting to Jiang Tian. After all, although Jiang Tian was called the top overlord on Earth, it was only a rumor in the underground world. Now, many ancient forces had submitted and formed the Mythology Alliance. Jiang Tian was the leader, which was equivalent to an official announcement to officially establish his position. For example, the CEOs of the Fortune 500 and the leaders of the consortiums weren't qualified to meet Jiang Tian. They could only attend the ceremony from afar to show their support and respect for Jiang Tian. On both sides of the street, countless residents of Sidoni were shocked. Oh my God, our national prestige is so grand now. Even the President of the United States is here. He bowed to the true God of Taichu on the news. What's the big deal? I saw the Prime Minister of Japan kneel as if he were a believer seeing a true God. All of this was brought to us by the true God of Taichu. That's right. The primordial true God is going to revive spirit qi. Huaxia and Sidoni will benefit the most. Also, we have the Coelian technology in our hands. These superpowers will have to rely on us. Jiang Tian didn't even bother to meet the leaders of the various countries and the heads of the financial groups. He only left them to Qin Yang and the other outer sect disciples. Jiang Tian only needed to meet Ashur, the owner of the Tower of Babel, Geoffrey, the new king of Atlantis, Li Wuji of the pre-Qin dynasty and the Kunlun sect, the ghost emperor of Mount Mang, and the demon emperor of Dragon Pool. This was the backbone of the Myth Alliance and the main force that would protect Earth in the future. The sinner, the king of Assyria, greets the leader of the Taichu alliance and expresses his sincere apologies. The king of Assyria bowed deeply, his hands trembling slightly. It's fine. Jiang Tian smiled and said, since you are loyal and willing to sign a soul contract with me, you are my comrade in arms. Let's put aside our differences and fight side by side. Geoffrey greets the leader of the Taichu alliance. Next to the king of Assyria, Geoffrey, the king of Atlantis, bowed to the ground piously. Even though Jiang Tian had killed his father and the ancestral patriarch of the true dragon and the others had almost destroyed the city of Atlantis, he had no choice but to submit. If the leader of the Taichu alliance doesn't mind, please adopt Geoffrey as your son. This is the greatest consolation for AMU. That was the queen of AMU. She was beautiful and charming. Her waist was slim and her chest was high. She looked up at Jiang Tian with tears in her eyes. She wanted to throw herself into Jiang Tian's arms and beg for mercy. I'm very sorry about what happened to your father. However, he died peacefully and didn't suffer much. Jiang Tian didn't say anything and didn't even look at the queen. Thank you, leader of the Taichu Alliance. As your warriors, the Atlantean civilization listens to you the most. We'll go wherever you need us and settle down wherever you need us. The Atlantean civilization must remember the kindness of the leader of the Taichu Alliance and save the people of the dimensional world from the abyss of suffering. We'll put the red flag of the mythical alliance in every corner of the ruins of deity. However, Amu's widow and son knelt down with tears of gratitude. They looked so loyal that they wanted to gouge out their hearts. Countless people were moved when they saw this scene, and they wrung their hands and sighed as they deeply realized Jiang Tian's current might. This is the leader of the mythical alliance, the most powerful person in the world and the leader of the four worlds. Whoever dares to offend him will have to surrender, even if they kill your people. Otherwise, you'll be wiped off the face of the earth. Yi Tianren said with his hands behind his back. Many disciples of Tianqing school were full of pride. At the moment, the Tianqing sect had 4 nascent soul cultivators and 3 false core cultivators. The remaining sky immortals, earth immortals and human immortals were all gathered. They were so powerful that they could sweep across earth and no other force would dare to resist. Fellow Taoist Grand Primordium, may our friendship last forever. In the end, Li Wuji bowed slightly and shook hands with Jiang Tian. His face was full of reverence. Of course. The daily affairs of the mythical alliance can't be done without your support. Jiang Tian nodded and patted Li Wuji's shoulder. He smiled faintly and meaningfully. Seeing the overlords of the Yu family, the Yin family, the Ji family, the Jiang family and the other family lords of the pre-Qin dynasty all turned pale and lost all hope. Ah, if people like Yu Jingtian and Yu Wending hadn't made a mistake when Kang Taichu extended the olive branch, we would have become the core of the mythical alliance, just like Li Wuji. At least our status wouldn't be much lower than Li Wuji's, a family leader said. His words were like heavy hammers hitting everyone's chests. They were indescribably regretful. Many members of the pre-Qin sect couldn't help but feel regretful. Their faces were extremely pale and their hands were trembling violently. A single tree couldn't form a forest. Jiang Tian knew that unity was strength. Originally, Jiang Tian wanted to join forces with the Kunlun sect and the famous pre-Qin sects to form a mythological alliance. They would have held important positions, but now, they only had the qualifications to observe the ceremony. Then, the Mythical Alliance announced the establishment of the Mythical Alliance and signed a divine soul contract with the Global Defense Alliance, the Secret Land and the Grotto Heavens. The declaration said, all races, governments, mortal and cultivation organizations in the world support the revival of spirit qi and share cultivation arts to achieve the evolution and strengthening of human beings. After the recovery of spirit qi, the 3 races, the demons, the ghosts, and any other races had to take humans as the core and fight alongside them. They were not allowed to invade the human world. Otherwise, they would be killed without mercy. Cultivators should fight for the mortal world. The hot blood of the strong should flow for the weak. They must not invade or interfere with the order of the mortal world. Before the threat of the ruins of immortality, all races and forces should fight for the human community on Earth. They must fight against the ruins of immortality and must not seek refuge with hostile worlds such as the ruins of immortality. Those who violate the contract will be killed without mercy. Regardless of race, civilization, armed force, social group, or individual, as long as they are willing to fight against the atrocities of the ruins of immortality, they are part of the mythical alliance and can sign this contract. Earth should unite with Heavenly Star, Heavenly State, West Earth, and all forces against the atrocities of the ruins of immortality and the other worlds to form a solid alliance. Finally, after the meeting ended, Jiang Tian finally announced that the Spirit Guiding Array would be activated immediately and the revival of Spirit Qi on a global scale. In the Command and Control Room, President Bush of the United States, the new Russian Emperor, President Jung of the European Union, and other big shots gathered one by one, looking at the big screen with anticipation and nervousness. On the outer floor, there were also the figures of the king of Assyria, Jeffrey, Li Wuji, and other major powerhouses on Earth. In addition, there were also reporters from major media outlets around the world, such as BBC, CNN, Reuters, the Daily News. Hundreds of media outlets gathered together and aimed their cameras at Jiang Tian, the heads of state, and the people. Through their lenses, the 6 billion people around the world were either holding their phones, sitting in front of their computers, or sitting in front of the TV with their families, holding hands, watching with rapt attention, expectant, and nervous. At this moment, the whole world was silent. At this moment, the hearts of the 6 billion people around the world were beating in unison for Jiang Tian and the revival of spirit qi. Chapter 1290. Sidoni Tianqing School's main dojo, 9 dragons spirit guiding array and spirit making well are ready. The array pattern is correct. The magic equipment is operating normally. The angle is calibrated correctly. The spirit qi recovery seed is filled and ready to be activated. Ready. Hong Ye's body straightened as he saluted Jiang Tian and reported. Hua Xia's Mountame Dojo, spirit guiding array and spirit making well. The array pattern is correct. The magic equipment is operating normally. The angle is calibrated correctly. Ready. On the other side of the earth, Wang Linger's voice came through the earpiece and resounded in everyone's ears. She was wearing the uniform of the Myth Alliance, and her solemn and beautiful face was also presented on the screen. Hua Xia's Shenong Valley Dojo, spirit guiding array and spirit making well. The magic equipment is operating normally. The angle is calibrated correctly. The spirit qi recovery seed is filled and ready to be activated. Ready. Shen Mange's voice came from the screen. Hua Xia's Kunlun Mountain, spirit guiding array and spirit making well. The magic equipment is operating normally. The angle is calibrated correctly. The spirit qi recovery seed is filled and ready to be activated. Ready. Hua Xia's Tianshan Dojo, Hua Xia's Taishan Dojo, Hua Xia's Diansang Dojo, voices and images came one by one. Everyone was focused and meticulous. Their eyes were filled with expectation and unyielding fighting spirit. Rocky Mountain Spirit Guiding Point in the United States, South America's Spirit Guiding Point, Russia's Tunguska Spirit Guiding Point, Babel's Spirit Guiding Point in Central Asia, then came the images and voices from the international world. Hua Xia had the most spirit guiding arrays and spirit making wells. Other countries only had one or even a few. On the one hand, Jiang Tian was a descendant of the Yellow Emperor. Naturally, outsiders could not benefit. On the other hand, Hua Xia was also the country that firmly supported the spirit qi recovery and gave the most resources. In the end, all the voices converged into one sentence. All dojos are ready. Please instruct us, Tai Chu. At this moment, Jiang Tian's face showed a trace of determination. He waved his hand and said, for the continuation of Earth's civilization, spirit qi recovery. All spirit guiding arrays, activate the spirit qi recovery seed. Boom. At that moment, the entire Earth seemed to tremble. Countless buildings shook as if there was an earthquake. But it was still all right. In the previous month, the world had spent a lot of money to build many refugee camps, move the people, and strengthen the buildings. Therefore, there were no casualties. On a global scale, the spiritual qi recovery seeds in more than 10 spirit guiding arrays spurted out at the same time and struck the planet destruction strike deep inside Earth. Rumble. In the depths of Earth, star destruction suddenly awakened. Like the most terrifying primordial beast, he crazily devoured the incoming spirit qi. However, at the next moment, on the surface of the Earth, countless spirit guiding array discs began to operate, emitting a bright light. The spirit qi suddenly became incomparably violent, madly pouring into the array. It was like a nuclear explosion. No! Star Destruction's artifact spirit let out a terrified scream before exploding with a loud boom. Together with the earth malevolent miasma underground and the boiling lava, countless spiritual energies rushed out like waves crashing against the shore. United States, Yellowstone National Park. The temperature is soaring. So fast. I hope it won't erupt. A few geologists were checking the temperature of the hot spring on the surface. The data in front of them was shocking. It shouldn't be. One of the fat men said casually while eating a burger, the geological structure is very complicated. The geological structure of this place is very complicated. Intense volcanic activity once occurred here, but the last eruption was 640,000 years ago. He glanced at the Black Hawk helicopter not far away and joked, the military even sent a helicopter. What a fuss. But at this moment, the hot spring bubbled, and hot air filled the air like boiling water. The temperature on the thermometer soared and suddenly exploded. The ground also shook violently. Everyone couldn't stand steadily. The fat man glared, threw away his burger, and ran, shouting, "Get on the helicopter." Everyone scrambled up the helicopter. On the helicopter, the Air Force general grabbed the walkie-talkie and reported to the military. The Black Hawk hovered in the air. Streams of crimson lava gushed out, reaching a height of several hundred meters. Yellowstone Park was engulfed in a sea of fire. Black smoke billowed and volcanic ash filled the air. Small animals ran around randomly, screaming miserably. The Black Hawk helicopter was like a fly, dodging between the huge red pillar and the fireworks. It brushed past the lava several times. 2012, the end of the world didn't come. Damn, 2013 actually came. The fat man's eyes widened and his body trembled. In fact, not only Yellowstone National Park, but all the volcanic belts in the world, including the Pacific Rim, the Mediterranean Sea, the Himalayas, and the Oceanic Ridge, all shook together and countless volcanoes erupted. The eruption of the Oceanic Ridge volcanic belt was even more shocking. The Atlantic Ridge, the Indian Ridge, and the East Pacific Ridge. The endless hot lava was cooled by the seawater and formed islands. Some of the lava rushed out of the sea and fell, forming islands and mountains. At the same time, earth-shattering tsunamis and violent hurricanes formed. Monstrous waves that were hundreds of meters high were unprecedented in human history. They drowned coastal cities. Tokyo sunk. Hundreds of thousands of people were drowned alive. However, luckily, the other cities were well prepared and no one was killed or injured. Jiang Tian ordered, spirit attraction. Many spirit attraction arrays suddenly spun in the opposite direction and shook crazily. Many Dharma treasures shone brightly and a strong suction force was formed, drawing the spirit chi of planet destruction to the ground like a black hole. The earthquake suddenly stopped and the volcanoes also stopped erupting. At that moment, the world suddenly changed. Everyone was delighted to see that. A colorful auspicious chi gushed out and covered the sky above Sidonie, Huaxia, Europe and the United States. Endless spirit chi surged out of the spirit wells like a broken dam. Thousands of rays of light and thousands of auspicious colors were shot out. Spirit chi turned into rain and fog in many places where spirit chi was restored. It then turned into a heavy rain and fell down. Everyone saw that. Under the nourishment of the spirit rain, the seeds instantly sprouted, took root, grew branches, and spread leaves. In just a few seconds, they had turned into towering trees. What abundant spirit chi! Many powerful cultivators were shocked to feel the unimaginably rich spiritual chi in the surroundings. They sighed with emotion. The spirit chi restoration is the greatest transition and evolution of the cultivation environment on Earth in the past 100,000 years. It's the biggest change in history. A new era has begun. Our time has come. Many cultivators looked at the sky with glitters in their eyes. They were excited and couldn't calm down. In fact, one mountain range after another rose up, and the continents were expanding and growing as they headed toward the cultivation planets. However, most of these places were in the mountains and the cities weren't affected at the moment. There were only slight earthquakes. If this continues for a year, the Earth will probably double in size. A geologist said dumbfoundedly as he looked at the test data. The spiritual chi seemed to have a life of its own as it flowed out from the spiritual guiding array in all directions, from the famous mountains and great rivers to the city. The spiritual chi was like musk and orchids, with a strong fragrance that made people feel refreshed with just a whiff. Huaxia, Zhongyuan Province, Post House District, Huaxia No. 1008 Refugee Camp. Damn you, Kang Tae-chu. Why the hell are you reviving spirit chi? I was chased out of a $1 million villa by the officials and came to the refugee camp. An old man with a crooked mouth, slanted eyes, and saliva dripping from his mouth was sitting in a wheelchair. He was exasperated and hysterical. Suddenly, the alarm sounded and the broadcaster's voice spread throughout the entire refugee camp. There will be a slight tremor in 10 minutes. However, my building has been specially reinforced and is enough to deal with it. Please don't panic. Damn you, Kang Tae-chu. You've killed me. Earthquake. Spirit chi restoration my ass. The disheveled old man was a maniac who cursed madly at the dart plate made of Jiang Tian's portrait, cursing vaguely. The dart plate was already densely packed with needle holes, almost turning into a sieve. It was difficult for this old man to still be able to shoot darts and hit Jiang Tian's portrait despite suffering from a stroke and being paralyzed in half. It was clear how much he hated Jiang Tian. At this moment, the world shook and the buildings trembled violently. Smoke and dust rolled down and filled the air. The old man jumped up in fright and rushed outside, cursing, "This is a slight tremor. Damn it, this is even scarier than a magnitude 8 earthquake." He ran a few steps. Suddenly, he was stunned and muttered, "My paralysis has been cured. I can speak clearly and even run. My arthritis is cured. It doesn't hurt at all. It's numb. My emphysema is also cured. My vitiligo." At this moment, cheers spread throughout the entire refugee camp. Many people's illnesses were alleviated or completely disappeared in an instant. The serious and chronic illnesses also improved significantly. Almost everyone could feel the recovery of spirit chi. They suddenly realized that the air between heaven and earth was so pure and refreshing. Countless flowers bloomed in the courtyard in an instant. It was like heaven. This is the effect of the recovery of spirit chi. Kang Tae-chu once said that if the recovery of spirit chi succeeds, our bodies will be healthier. Suddenly, someone came to a realization. Thank you, Kang Tae-chu. Thank you, True God Tai-chu. After everyone came to a realization, they all kowtowed. True God Tai-chu, invincible, eternal. Savior. The old man even held the dart plate made of Jiang Tian's surrender and raised it high for everyone to worship. Under Jiang Tian's portrait, countless people gathered. Some raised their arms and shouted, while others knelt on the ground, shedding tears of gratitude. Chapter 1291. Meanwhile, in the depths of the Tianqing School Training Hall, in Qinger's bedroom, Zhao Xueqing was lying on a bed made of chalcedony. Her face was covered in cold sweat, and she gritted her teeth. Her clothes were already soaked in cold sweat. Around the chalcedony bed, rich spiritual energy gushed powerfully and flowed continuously into Zhao Xueqing's body. The bedroom of Jiang Tian and his wife was located above the world's largest spiritual guiding array, the Nine Dragon Spiritual Guiding Array. The mouth of the spirit creation well was directly facing her bed, so it was convenient for her to absorb and use it. Therefore, the spiritual energy here was the most condensed and vigorous in the world. At this time, Zhao Xueqing's body was like a huge black hole, with an unparalleled suction force. Not only did she absorb all the gushing spiritual energy, but she also plundered the surrounding spiritual energy, so that a huge vortex with a radius of 1 mile formed above the roof. It was dark and heavy, and from time to time, there were thunderous explosions and spiritual rain falling. She's going to give birth. She's going to give birth. It's been 3 hours. She should have given birth by now. In the living room outside the bedroom, Jiang Changeng, Jiang Zhixing, Zhang Wanqing, Yi Ziwei, Jiang Bangxia, and the others were all busy and anxious, like ants on a hot pan. On Zhao Xueqing's side, Zhao Hucheng and his family had also rushed over. They had been anxiously guarding and waiting there. Why is it taking so long? Why isn't my brother-in-law here yet? This is too much. Zhao Qianru wiped the hot sweat on her forehead. Her sister giving birth made her very nervous, as if she was giving birth herself. Jiang Tian is presiding over the recovery of spiritual energy, but I heard that it has reached the spiritual guiding stage. He should be here soon. Jiang Zhixing explained. What's more important than his wife giving birth? When did he become such a saint? The spiritual energy of the world has nothing to do with us. Zhang Wanqing was so angry that her eyes were slightly red, and she was about to swear. If anything happens to my daughter-in-law and my precious granddaughter, I don't want to live anymore. I'll skin this bastard alive. Our son is close at hand, and he can multitask. He knows the situation here. Don't worry. Jiang Zhixing held his lover's sweaty hand and comforted her in a soft voice. Qing'er is a good girl. She will be fine. Jiang Tian is back. Right at this moment, Jiang Tian flew into the hall. Everyone hurriedly went up to greet him, talking all at once. Jiang Tian grabbed Jiang Tian's hand. His whole body was trembling, and tears flowed down his face as he said, Jiang Tian, if you can only save one, then save Qing'er. Our Jiang family cannot lose her. Grandpa, don't worry. I'll protect both of them. Jiang Tian's expression was firm. He raised his hand to signal everyone not to say anything more and quickly walked into Qing'er's bedroom. With a wave of his hand, the door closed. Jiang Tian, I can't hold on any longer. Seeing Jiang Tian appear, the two lines of coldness that had been in her eye sockets for a long time finally surged out from Zhao Xueqing's eyes. Zhao Xueqing bit her lower lip, panted, and groaned in extreme pain. It's okay. I'm here. Jiang Tian stepped forward and held Zhao Xueqing's sweaty hand. He forced himself to calm down and scanned with his divine sense. He was shocked. The devouring power of Qing'er and his precious daughter, the stainless phoenix maiden, was too strong. 1/10 of planet destruction's spiritual energy was gathered here. The spiritual energy of the 9 spirit energy recovery seeds was almost completely devoured, but it still couldn't fill up the black hole-like physique. Now, Qing'er's physique was abnormally weak, and her meridians were dry. Fortunately, Jiang Tian had made more than 10 spirit guiding arrays. Otherwise, Qing'er and the child would have been hard to save. It seems that I can only draw half of the world's spiritual energy to this place. Jiang Tian's hands trembled slightly, and a trace of determination flashed in his eyes. He stomped his right foot on the ground and made a hand seal, pressing it on the huge array disk arranged at the head of the bed. NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration of the United States. As the organization with the most advanced aerospace technology on Earth, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration of the United States monitored all anomalies in the entire solar system all year round. However, they hadn't observed any anomalies over the years, except for the time when Jiang Tian ejected 10 flying swords on the Sword Tomb Island. Station Master Charles, I think you're too tired after working for 24 hours straight. We should go have a cup of coffee to refresh ourselves. Inside the Milky White Witness space station, in the planetary observation room, Schroeder looked at his colleague with a cup of coffee and said respectfully, I think I'll definitely make a major discovery after carefully observing Earth this time. Charles stared at the screen and adjusted all kinds of instruments. I know that earthquakes and volcanic eruptions are frequent all over the world during the spirit energy recovery era, but those are the targets of the ground staff's monitoring. I think it shouldn't be enough to cause changes in the level of space. Schroeder smiled bitterly. Charles was the astronaut who observed Jiang Tian releasing the flying swords on the Sword Tomb Island last time. At that time, Jiang Tian's flying swords were thought to be cosmic rays. However, this information was eventually sent to the higher-ups of the United States. After being decrypted by the Pentagon, they realized that it was Jiang Tian's flying swords. Jiang Tian was also the first human in history to make matter rush out of Earth and reach outer space with his own strength. This also became the last straw that broke the Pentagon's back, making them completely give up resistance and submit to Jiang Tian. In order to commemorate Charles's major discovery, this space station was named the Witness. Charles was also directly promoted from a low-level observer to the station master. Now, the Witness was also one of the most advanced space stations in the world. It had a gravity simulation system and the largest space radio telescope to detect every movement in the depths of the starry sky and the desolate outer space. However, as soon as Schroeder finished speaking, Station Master Charles's face suddenly turned pale. His body trembled slightly as he exclaimed, "Look! This. Oh my God!" Schroeder hurried to the front of the screen and looked at it carefully. He was also shocked and trembled violently. He saw the Earth tremble slightly. The entire atmosphere was like an inflated balloon, expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. It had expanded by thousands of meters, tens of thousands of meters, tens of thousands of meters. Roar! All of a sudden, with the Kunlun mountain as the leader, the spiritual energy that had been gushing out of more than 10 subarrays of the spirit guiding array around the world suddenly turned into dragons of spiritual energy, which let out earth-shattering roars and flew out with bared fangs and brandished claws. These spirit chi dragons had lofty horns and were thousands of miles long. Their waists were as thick as mountains, like the Yangtze River and the Yellow River, as if they were the Great Wall of spirit chi. Their bodies seemed to be carved out of jade. Dragon horns and scales were crystal clear and their eyes were like huge pearls, shining brightly and releasing dazzling rays of light. They passed through the mountains, swept across the earth, flew into the clouds, and drilled into the sea, quickly rushing towards Sidoni. Oh my God! This is not the power of a human. Schroeder's coffee cup rolled to the ground instantly. He didn't even notice the hot coffee pouring on his feet. Instead, he trembled and exclaimed. Almost at the same time, scientific research institutions around the world and even ordinary people caught sight of the shocking spirit chi dragons. The spirit chi dragons roared and shook the mountains and rivers, covering the sky and the sun. They went through the clouds and over the mountains, roaring and breaking through the sky at a speed comparable to the speed of sound. Kang Techu's power is too powerful. One person can move the earth and one person can shake the world. For a moment, all the countries were shocked. All the senior officials were dumbfounded and all the overlords were frightened. They're here. They're here. 9 dragons facing the phoenix, today I'm going to help you two achieve phenomenal success. At the same time, Jiang Tian held Qing'er's hand tightly and scanned half of the earth with his immortal will. There was a joyful smile on his face. 1, 2, 3. In the end, a total of 9 giant spirit chi dragons arrived above the Sidoni Tianqing School's training hall one after another. Each dragon stretched across the entire border of Sidoni, covering the sky and the sun. It was so vast that one couldn't see the end of it. There were thousands of auspicious lights around them and the spirit chi they emitted could turn into clouds and mist. The light was bright and suddenly turned into a downpour. Every person who bathed in it was blessed by endless blessings. They gained wisdom, strengthened their bodies and strengthened their minds. The power of the Taichu true God is endless. The 9 dragons worship and thousands of spirit chi gather. Seeing this shocking miracle, countless Sidoni citizens walked out of the door in the rain of spirit chi and knelt on the ground, praising the Taichu true God. Spirit chi dragons, 9 dragons gather. I heard that Kang Techu's wife is going to give birth today. Is he going to create a supreme spirit fetus or deity fetus? I'm afraid so. This is 10 times more powerful than the ancient deity's 3 flowers and 5 chi's unification. The Taichu Alliance leader is so powerful. It's like an ancient deity repairing the sky. How generous. The king of Assyria, Geoffrey, Li Wuji, and the others walked out of the door and looked up at the 9 spirit chi dragons in shock. Their eyes were filled with complicated emotions. Hey, hey, hey. With such amazing talents and methods, why should we be afraid of the ruins emperor? This method of gathering spirit chi is too powerful. If we can master a little, we can enter the nascent soul realm and seek the supreme Tao. Even the 4 nascent soul cultivators, Zhenlong, Takong, Lian Sheng and Mingyi, were dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. Shattering the planet extermination array spirit and gathering the spirit chi of the world was already the work of a deity. Even the ancient sages couldn't do it. And now, he had turned the spirit chi of the world into 9 dragons and passed through earth to gather there. He was making up for his wife's cultivation and forging a supreme deity body. Even Zhenlong and Takong had never heard of or seen anything like that before. Even the super grand cultivators in the central galaxy deep in the universe might not be able to master such an incredible method. Today, I'm going to go against nature and break the laws of this world. Dragons, come. Looking at Qing'er, whose hair was drenched in sweat and whose eyes were brimming with tears, who kept sucking in cold breaths and screaming miserably, Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with a tenderness that couldn't be dispelled. A shred of determination flashed in his eyes as he let out a low shout. Boom! 9 spirit chi dragons surged down and charged into Zhao Xueqing's body. Chapter 1292. Use the Dharma spells to absorb and refine it. Jiang Tian reminded Qing'er. His hands moved like butterflies and he performed all the Dharma spells he had learned in his life. He formed a few Dharma spells and pressed them on Qing'er's swollen belly. Her long hair and sleeves fluttered without any wind. At that moment, Zhao Xueqing's body let out beams of light. Her bones were like jade, her flesh was like crystal, her organs were like jade and her blood was like mercury. The blood in her body flowed like mercury as her dantian furiously devoured surging and vast spirit energy. It emitted a rumbling sound that was like a great river that shook the entire heavenly clear school and even spread out to several dozen kilometers away. It was like a thunderclap, causing the experts in the training grounds to be extremely terrified. Countless rays of golden light, rays of light and dragons and phoenixes appeared on Zhao Xueqing's body. Rays of light surrounded her and many Dharma laws appeared in the air. Countless energy of order spread from the sky, as if she were created by the Dharma laws of heaven and earth. How is that possible? I heard that Mistress Xueqing is only at the Qi refinement level and hasn't even reached the foundation establishment level. Why is her body more terrifying than ours? There are even Dharma laws of the universe in her body. This is like a legend. Even if we become nascent soul cultivators, we can only control 1 or 2 Dharma laws of the universe. Her body is almost as perfect as the body of a soul formation grand cultivator. That's terrifying. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon and the other ancestral patriarchs looked at each other with their immortal will and were shocked. They couldn't understand it even if they racked their brains. However, in reality, Zhao Xueqing's physical body was undergoing a drastic transformation with the help of the 9 spirit chi dragons. It was a complete transformation. She and the baby in her belly skipped the phenomenal success stage and went all the way to the peak and perfected state. Although the stainless phoenix deity body was powerful, it also had a huge flaw. Its swallowing ability was too powerful, it could even be said to be the most powerful devouring body in the universe. For example, a professional boxer needed protein powder and nutritious meals to provide sufficient energy. If he ate porridge every day, he would be malnourished. If there wasn't enough spiritual energy to nourish the body, it would even become a burden to the body. The body would be weak, sickly, and die prematurely. The baby in Qing'er's womb kept devouring Zhao Xueqing's qi and blood essence, causing her cultivation to drop. Even the baby could not satisfy her. That was why Zhao Xueqing fainted time and time again and her cultivation dropped sharply. But this time, Jiang Tian took half of the spiritual energy contained in Star Destruction and transformed it into 9 huge dragons before injecting it into Qing'er and the child's bodies. It was vast and boundless, and it could be said to be a sea of spiritual energy. It was an extreme improvement to their physiques. The whole process lasted for several hours. At this time, the curtain of night fell and the lanterns were lit. The 9 dragons in the sky became smaller and smaller, fainter and fainter. Finally, they disappeared completely. The clouds dispersed and the rain dispersed, revealing the bright stars that filled the sky. As for Zhao Xueqing and the child in her belly, they had reached a state of great satisfaction and consummation. Innate consummation, without any flaws or regrets. The baby in the womb opened its eyes wide, sucked its thumb, and kept kicking its legs, as if it was eager to come out and see this glorious world. I feel that I'm about to give birth. Zhao Xueqing opened her tired eyes, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Crystal tears rolled down her cheeks as she exerted all her strength. Wah! Wah wah! Accompanied by a loud and powerful cry, the gluttonous daughter had finally arrived. Jiang Tian had consumed a lot of spiritual energy to activate half of the spiritual energy on Earth, and he was originally very tired. At this moment, her heart relaxed, and she immediately collapsed on the chair beside the bed, almost fainting due to exhaustion. But when he heard the cry, Jiang Tian's spirit was greatly lifted. He jumped up, cut off 13 umbilical cords, carefully removed the placenta, took out his daughter, who was dripping wet, and carefully wrapped her in swaddling clothes. I, Jiang Tian, am a father. Jiang Tian kept kissing his daughter's wet, wrinkled, and ugly little face that was covered with fetal hair. He did not mind that it was dirty, and he did not dare to kiss too hard, as if his daughter was made of water and he would hurt her. His tears of joy rolled down like a river that had broken the dam. In his previous life, he failed and was in dire straits. Before Qing'er died, she did not leave him any children, which made him regret it even before he committed suicide. Since he stepped into the cultivation world, he had been missing and feeling guilty for Qing'er for 10,000 years. He only wanted to make progress bravely and numb himself with cultivation. Although there were many fairies pursuing him, he had never had a Taoist companion, a lover, let alone a child. After 2 lives and many hardships, he finally had a child. How could he not be happy, excited, and tearful? At this moment, his chest was boiling, and he only felt great satisfaction, fulfillment, and joy. He was 10,000 times happier than when he became the immortal emperor and became a true god in his previous life. Don't just be happy by yourself, let me see. Qing'er struggled to sit up. Looking at the child in Jiang Tian's arms, she cried and laughed. Madam, you have worked hard. Look, she is as beautiful as you. Jiang Tian's tears kept flowing. He couldn't stop them no matter how hard he tried. He carried the child for her to see and held Qing'er's shoulder. So ugly. She looks more like you. But so strong. Mother's hard work all these years has not been in vain. Qing'er took the child, her eyes hazy with tears. She smiled contentedly and blissfully, and kissed the child's forehead deeply. Children are all like this. Grow and grow, and in a few days, they will grow and become round. Jiang Tian smiled like a blooming flower. Besides, if she is ugly, then so be it. Our family's dowry is ample. In the whole world, who is richer than her father? Even in the whole universe, in the future, there are not many people who can be richer than my child's father. In fact, Jiang Tian's words were not exaggerated. This girl was the immaculate phoenix maiden immortal body at the great perfection immortal fetus. It was as if she was conceived by a deity in the celestial world. In the future, her cultivation would be very smooth and there would be no obstacles. She also did not need the new flower to awaken her constitution. Such a divine fetus would be considered a heaven-defying constitution that would only appear once in a million years in the immortal sacred grounds of the universe. Jiang Tian, do you want to die? Why didn't you say anything? How is the situation? Do you want your mother to be worried to death? Outside, Zhang Wanqing could not wait any longer. She banged on the door, her voice full of resentment. Mother and child are safe. When Jiang Tian said this, the baby is born. Mother and child are safe. Immediately, the living room was filled with laughter. Everyone's hearts were finally at ease. Zhang Wanqing relaxed and sat on the ground, tears rolling down her face. It's finally born. When Jiang Tian walked out, he was beaten by Zhang Wanqing again. Zhang Wanqing twisted his ear and scolded, "Brat, you only care about your own happiness. You didn't think about how long we've been waiting outside. Do you want me to be worried to death?" "Mom, I was wrong. I won't do it again." Jiang Tian raised his hands and begged for mercy pitifully. The supreme of the four realms was beaten so badly by Mom. This scene made Yiziwei, Jiang Bangxia, and the other girls cover their mouths and laugh, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Nowadays, there were endless forums in various dimensions. In addition, Jiang Tian had defeated many hidden forces and succeeded in the spirit qi revival, so the cultivation civilization was very popular. Jiang Tian's name had spread throughout the world. So what if he's the supreme of the 10,000 realms? I gave birth to him after 10 months of pregnancy. When can't I teach him a lesson? Zhang Wanqing's face was proud. With a wave of her hand, a golden wind blade cut a deep mark on the green jade floor. She was originally a strong woman in the business world. After her son's success in conquering dimensions, her horizons were broadened. Now, the Medicine King group was under the management of Jiang Bangxia, so she focused on cultivation. She had mastered the raising eyebrows sword technique, and her cultivation was close to qi refinement. This wind blade was really awe-inspiring, like a peerless heroine. "Don't dance around. Can you take responsibility if you scare my granddaughter?" Jiang Zhixing frowned and scolded. He was finally a grandfather and had a precious granddaughter. With his granddaughter as his wife, he was finally in awe. It turned out that Zhao Qianru was supporting Qing'er while Wei Fang was carrying her granddaughter. "He's so handsome. One look and I can tell you're my Zhang family's child." Zhang Wanqing's eyes curved into crescents. She immediately surrounded them happily, took her granddaughter, and didn't let go again. This made Wei Fang extremely resentful. She said angrily, "Zhang Wanqing, you're too domineering. I haven't hugged her enough." Zhang Wanqing ignored her and looked at Qing'er with concern. "Qing'er, is your body okay? It's better to rest for a while." "Mom, don't worry. I feel pretty good. Much better than before." Zhao Xueqing smiled. Qing'er's cultivation seems to have increased greatly. "How high is it?" At the side, Jiang Changgen's eyes flashed. He pulled Jiang Tian to the side and whispered, "As high as 3 or 4 levels." Jiang Tian's lips curled into a mysterious smile. He didn't say it explicitly, but his tone was filled with self-satisfaction and pride. Chapter 1293. At this time, Qing'er had already condensed her gold core. Planet Destroyer's qi wasn't just for show, it was boundless and vast. It actually pushed Zhao Xueqing past the 3 stages of qi refinement, foundation establishment, and gold core, stabilizing her at the middle stage of gold core. Considering that she had the pure phoenix immortal physique and had already reached perfection, her current strength might be able to crush at least 4 nascent soul-old monsters. She was only a bit weaker than him. "Stinking brat, don't keep me in suspense. Be careful, Qing'er will beat you up." Jiang Changgen rolled his eyes at him. The entire living room was filled with laughter and endless happiness. Jiang Tian was immersed in the ecstasy of becoming a father for the first time. Every day, he would play with his child, accompany Qing'er, and look at his precious daughter's cute smile. Jiang Tian only felt that his heart was filled with happiness and was especially satisfied. Outside, the effects of the revival of qi were just beginning to show. All kinds of bizarre scenes appeared one after another, shocking everyone. Everyone felt a kind of feeling of disbelief. In the initial stage of the revival of qi, there were erupting volcanoes and earthquakes. The aftershocks didn't gradually stop until 10 days later. 9 enormous qi dragons crossed the sea and spanned the blue dome of heaven, converging at Sidoni. It brought an even greater shock to people all over the world. In Huaxia, in the depths of Mount Lu, someone saw a white ape hanging on a tree, swallowing the essence of the sun and moon, drinking the wind and drinking dew. In America's Rocky Mountain, a tiger king appeared. It sat cross-legged in meditation, its fur glistening. It fiddled with its phone and watched American dramas. Several days later, it actually spoke the human language, and it was even authentic American English. A month later, more and more strange things happened on Earth. Everyone understood that these things were greatly related to the revival of Qi. Animals have become spirits. They've evolved. Kang Tae-chu said before, and sure enough, it's as he speculated. Scared me to death. A few days ago, a snake appeared in my backyard. That snake actually knew how to talk and courteously asked to borrow something to eat. It ran to my house, opened the fridge, and dragged away a chicken. I was scared silly. Did I dare not to lend it? 2 days later, the snake really did send me a pig. Consider it as interest. The pig in your house is definitely not the pig in my backyard. The little pig in my house has grown to the size of a calf and has grown scales. It can fly horizontally and claims that it has the bloodline of an alligator. Now that its bloodline has awakened, it doesn't want to leave and says that it wants to protect its master. Now that he's doing nothing but eating 50 caddies of beef a day, I can't afford to feed him. Is there any substitute food? I'm afraid he'll eat me when he's starving. Waiting online, it's urgent. An alligator? It's a magical animal in Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio. It also exists in Hindu mythology. It likes to lie there and beat its belly with its tail. It's quite cute. Are you selling it? I can afford to raise it. Ordinary people were posting comments on the online forums. All kinds of mutated situations were popping up like bamboo shoots after the rain. Not only animals, but even plants and trees also had spirituality. All the major websites had opened special sections such as Spiritual Aura Recovery, Great Changes in Heaven and Earth, Were You Attacked by Animals and Plants Today? And the reports were endless. Earth's spirit Qi was rapidly recovering, and the world had become completely different. Not only had some people's illnesses disappeared, but many cultivation experts had also emerged. Then, the logic of the entire world had become different. The existing political and social order was being shaken and subverted. Violent conflicts were rising rapidly. Every country and government had set up cultivation, martial arts, and supernatural ability schools. The police and the military had set up corresponding departments, offering high salaries and many resources to attract cultivators to join. Cultivation had never been raised to such an unparalleled height as it was today. Only Huaxia, due to its support of Jiang Tian's Spirit Aura Recovery Plan, had adequate emergency plans, and the social order was super stable. Everything was still under the leadership of the party and the government, and it had entered the new era of Spirit Aura Recovery in an orderly manner. Boom! At the peak of Mount Tai, 9 colorful rainbows, which were thousands of meters long, shot straight to the sky like peerless heavenly swords. At that moment, the entire northern part of Huaxia and several provinces could feel a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering pressure. The 9 vast auras were like dragons soaring into the sky, causing the land within 100 miles in the north to tremble. 10,000 meters high in the sky, thunderclouds gathered. Each of them covered a radius of 10 miles, towering like a canopy. What's that? It's so terrifying. Could it be that the devil has risen from the ashes? Quickly go into the bunker. Some citizens walked out of the bunker and looked up at the sky in shock. What devil? These are the most loyal guardians of Huaxia, the 9 Hongmeng elders of the mythological alliance. Don't you watch the news? The officials have already announced in advance that no one is allowed to enter the area within 100 miles of Mount Tai to avoid injury. Next to him, someone took out a tablet and swiped the news for the people around him. Most of the 9 Hongmeng elders were born in Huaxia during the Tang, Song, and Yuan dynasties. Previously, they were suppressed by the immortal trap array, and their golden cores were broken, so they could not use their cultivation. Now that the immortal trap array had been broken, and the shackles of heaven and earth had been opened, they had advanced 1,000 miles in a day, like fish leaping over the dragon's gate, and turned into dragons. Their cultivation had all condensed their golden cores. After that, the spirit qi recovered, and the world changed drastically, and Mount Tai became one of the main places to attract spirit qi. The 9 Hongmeng elders were endlessly nourished, and once again reached the peak stage of the golden core, and could be called a perfected immortal. Congratulations, leaders! Hua Xia has 9 more top overlords. Hua Xia is safe. In the Forbidden City, Yi Zhantian's face was full of joy as he looked at the leaders. After the situation was stabilized, Yi Zhantian was quickly sent to Shenong School for treatment. Even Jiang Tian went to see him and personally treated him and repaired his meridians. Supposedly, Yi Zhantian's dantian was destroyed and his meridians were all broken after Ji Muxian's sneak attack. This was an irreversible injury. Even in the Central Galaxy, where the cultivation civilization was flourishing, not many people could recover from it. However, Jiang Tian only spent a dozen minutes to make a few heaven-mending pills and repaired Yi Zhantian's dantian. I can't believe there is such a powerful pill in the world. Master can make it in seconds. It should be called the heaven-mending pill, but its effect is amazing. No wonder it's called heaven-mending pill. It's not that exaggerated. That scene shocked even ancestral patriarch True Dragon and the other nascent soul cultivators. They couldn't believe it, as if they had seen a miracle. We don't have to worry about our dantian being destroyed when we fight with Master. Then, they were overjoyed. As long as the dantian did not completely dissipate and turn into ashes, even if it was in tatters, it could still be repaired and cultivated from scratch. Yi Zhantian's dantian was repaired, but the true essence inside had mostly dissipated. His power had dropped to the level of qi refinement, but he couldn't do that. However, with the cultivation arts, pills and unimaginable resources that Jiang Tian had given him, he could recover to the top in 3 to 5 years. Yes, in the era of spirit qi recovery, Hua Xia will lead the world and stand at the top of the world. All of this is due to the great fortune that Jiang Taichu has brought. The leaders were even more overjoyed. They were filled with pride and passion, and they were filled with gratitude and admiration towards Jiang Tian. Boom! In Kunlun Mountain, Li Wuji couldn't help but fly up. The vast true essence in his body swept and crashed like raging waves. In the end, it gathered in his dantian and condensed into a fake pill the size of a pigeon egg. Kacha! Lightning as thick as an arm struck Li Wuji, scorching him on the outside and tender on the inside. When the lightning dissipated, Li Wuji was surprised to find that his fake pill had further solidified into a golden core. I've become a perfected deity. And it's a 5th grade golden core. How is this possible? Li Wuji stood in the void in a daze, feeling the rolling spirit qi within a radius of 100 miles surging into his body like an ocean. But in his dantian, the golden core that was shining brightly and filled with an immortal and indestructible aura was so real. It felt like a heart patient who had a new and healthy heart, providing him with an endless supply of energy. His blood surged like a river and made a series of loud roars. At this moment, he no longer doubted that he had really reached the golden core level. Suddenly, boundless ecstasy turned into surging waves and filled his heart. He was so happy that he cried like a child. He had cultivated for hundreds of years and avoided the world so that he could reach the golden core level one day and live forever. He had thought that under the deity trap array and on earth, where spirit qi had dried up, everything was just a dream. He would never be able to change his fate and there was no hope for him to reach the golden core level. But Jiang Tian had broken the cage of heaven and earth and revived the spirit qi on earth, allowing him to reach the limit and be reborn. Kang Taichu is right. He was deep in thought. Flames of war were dancing in his eyes and a fearless spirit slowly rose from the bottom of his heart. I have to fight for the opportunity to develop myself. I've been hiding like a turtle for too long and my neck has degenerated. I don't even have a chance to stick my head out. He straightened his back and a sharp battle intent tore through the sky like a heavenly sword being unsheathed. Everything within 100-mile radius shook. At this moment, he seemed to be the proud sect master of the Kunlun sect, the ancestor of the Heaven and Earth Tao sect. No matter how strong the enemy is, so what? Fight, only fight. Only then will we be able to tear apart this cage that imprisons us, and only then will we be able to ascend to the heavens and see a different scenery. At this moment, it seemed that the cowardly Li Wuji had died and was replaced by a new Li Wuji. Chapter 1294. Kang Te-chu is really a god. The ancient sages changed the land into rivers and moved the mountains to fill the sea, so what? Kang Te-chu dares to ask the sun and the moon to change the world. Thanks to the Taichu Alliance leader, we finally have a chance to make a name for ourselves. At this time, Yi Karen and many other disciples of Kunlun were shocked. Their faces were full of reverence and they admired Jiang Tian to the extreme. They had mixed feelings about Jiang Tian because the internal affairs of Kunlun were too complicated. Li Wuji had once used and killed Ji Muxian. Jiang Tian was behind the death of Ji Muxian and the recent cleansing and rectification of Kunlun that killed more than 300 overlords above the immortal state. So, most of them were afraid and hated Jiang Tian, but at this moment, there was only deep admiration left. What was more shocking was, in Tianqing School, Sita Shao, Yi Tianren and Huang Linger all formed the Golden Core in one day. The world was shocked when the news came out. Originally, on Earth, the third level of the Foundation establishment level was called Sky Immortal. It had always been regarded as the limit of cultivation and no one had been able to break through for thousands of years. Golden Core perfected immortals were just myths and legends. After the Battle of the Gods, they were almost completely extinct. But now, in a short time, 14 Golden Core overlords were born. The remarkable effect of the recovery of spirit chi shocked everyone and stirred the world. There is hope for Earth. A dozen Golden Core cultivators are comparable to a third-level dimensional world. The overlords who knew the secret were full of tears and hope. Yes, even if the overlords invade, our spirit chi has recovered. With the Golden Core and Koalian, we can do it. Many people were full of confidence. Not only that, even some ordinary people and young talents had broken through and stepped into the world of cultivation. In the base of the Guardians Alliance in Huaxia, the young warrior Cheng Lulu slowly rose to the sky like a dragon. Before leaving for the West Earth dimension, Jiang Tian revisited the old place and went to the Long Formation base. He had once given her a set of cultivation techniques. Coupled with the recovery of the spirit chi, Jiang Tian had also sponsored her with a lot of elixirs. She had reached the soul formation stage in just 1 month, which was unbelievable. In addition, in the northern part of Huaxia, an ordinary factory called Dalan Stone was suddenly invaded by dozens of mutated brown bears and wild wolves. These wild wolves had already evolved under the nourishment of spiritual energy. They were as tall as calves, and their fur was like steel needles. Those brown bears could smash boulders with just a swipe of their claws. They all stood up and stuttered in human language, claiming that they wanted to occupy the city and proclaim themselves kings. The human race should either die or retreat. The guards stationed here fired at them with heavy machine guns but were unable to kill them. They could only barely suppress them. Many workers entered the fortress and fortifications, but the fortifications were about to be torn apart by the wolves and destroyed by the brown bears. The situation was extremely critical. At this moment, a bald uncle who was sweeping the ground jumped out. He tore apart the wild wolves with his bare hands and blew up the brown bears with a punch. His punches and kicks were powerful and irresistible, as if they could shake the world. It only took him a few minutes to kill all the ferocious beasts. He's so strong. Is he a cultivator or a martial artist? Hero. He saved tens of thousands of people. Everyone was stunned. They walked out of the fortifications and looked at the uncle as if he was a hero. They all applauded. I'm not a cultivator or a martial artist. I'm just a cleaner. The uncle's smile was very honest. He was so shy that his face turned red. He quickly covered his face and ran to the dormitory, not daring to come out. He wanted to keep a low profile, but the news still spread. The video at that time was posted on the internet by busybodies. Many media outlets heard the news and came to interview him. Facing the reporter's cameras, he said shyly, "I just used my phone to look at the cultivation techniques published by Tianqing School. After practicing a few times, I felt the qi enter my body and warm my body. I also became a little stronger and swept faster than before. I'm not a hero. I'm just a cleaner." Everyone was shocked. For a sanitation worker with no foundation to have such strength after cultivating for only a month, it was like a myth. The cultivation techniques published by Tianqing School are very effective. Just like what Kang Taechu said, every mortal can become stronger and become a peerless hero. Many people who wanted to cultivate and become stronger looked up to him as a role model. He had many fans on the internet and became a big internet celebrity. Because he was a cleaner and had a bald head, he was called the sweeping monk of the Great Forest Factory. The great hermit lives in the factory, I'm just a cleaner, and other words became popular and popular. Later, the government was alarmed. The League of Defenders sent Chao Jianjia and the others to conduct a strict assessment. They found that his cultivation had reached the middle stage of qi refinement, which was a level higher than the martial arts grandmasters. He was immediately specially recruited to the League of Defenders and rose to the top in one step. However, that was only the beginning. After that, more and more ordinary people, such as white-collar workers, farmers, and peddlers, stepped onto the path of cultivation and gradually became stronger. Tens of thousands of people became cultivators and powerhouses, and were highly regarded by the government. A great era of cultivation with dragons and snakes rising from the ground and bright stars slowly opened. A cultivation planet that would shake the world in the future finally emitted its first faint ray of light in the vast universe. A few months later, it was already the beginning of 2014. The sun was shining. On the sunny beach of Sidoni's Bibu Bay, the sun was bright and beautiful. Seagulls soared and let out pleasant chirps. The tropical scenery was pleasant. In just a few years, the shadow of the Sopo War had disappeared. The Bibu Bay, which was once a heavily polluted place, had become a tourist attraction. It was far more popular than the Maldives and had become the favorite place for internet celebrities to check in. Even the great artists, famous models, and top dignitaries of France were proud to own a small villa in the Bibu Bay. They didn't deliberately set aside private beaches to keep people thousands of miles away. They pretended to be reserved. That was something only the stinky rich and fake aristocrats would do. In fact, Jiang Tian liked to have fun with the people. He disguised himself as an ordinary person and casually lay down on a deck chair under a few palm trees with branches and leaves swaying in the wind with Zhao Xueqing. He also held his little daughter, Jiang Beibei, in his arms. 3 meters away, there were running children and tourists from all over the world. At this time, Jiang Tian had short hair and was wearing sunglasses. He had blue stubble, sword-like eyebrows, and bright eyes. He was wearing casual beach pants and a pair of cold slippers, revealing his snow-white, sparkling, and powerful body that was like a jade leopard. He held Jiang Beibei, who was like a pink porcelain doll, in his arms. His stubble gently pricked his daughter's little face, causing the little girl to let out a bell-like laughter. Her little hand was scratching Jiang Tian's chin. "Beibei, you are daddy's precious baby, Dan, Jiang Tian laughed very happily. His eyes overflowed with tenderness that couldn't be dissolved, making Zhao Xueqing a little jealous. Being ruthless didn't mean being a true hero. How could a man not be compassionate? Jiang Tian's sharpness was hidden, and his murderous aura was restrained. He had the magnificent aura of a heavy sword without a sharp edge. At this time, he was deeply affectionate and gave people a very warm feeling. In the eyes of the crowd, he was clearly a middle-aged charming uncle who was good-looking and good-looking. Many young ladies and noblewomen around him cast sidelong glances at him with misty eyes. His daughter was already 100 days old. With the nourishment of the 9 dragons' spiritual energy, Zhao Xueqing had recovered well. Her skin was white and rosy. Even a 16-year-old girl paled in comparison. The curves of her body were exquisite. She was less immature and more mature and seductive. She was so beautiful that she could steal people's souls. Reporting to the Alliance Master, since the recovery of spiritual energy, a total of 520 people in Huaxia have broken through to the Foundation establishment stage. More than 200 of them have surpassed the fairy immortal realm, and 100,000 of them are expected to reach the body and chi refinement stage. Preliminary examination shows that more than 500,000 of them have the talent for cultivation. There may be more in the future. Among them, 98 of the most talented people have been given Guizhong Cauldron Heavenly Pills according to the Alliance Master's instructions. There are still more than 3,000 pills left. Behind Jiang Tian, Li Wuji was like a loyal servant. His face was full of smiles as he reported respectfully. Distribute them. Distribute them all. Distribute them if they have the talent. Why do I need the most talented people? Jiang Tian's face was full of affection. He was focused on playing with his daughter and said casually. What? Distribute them all? Li Wuji was so shocked that he almost fell to the ground. He couldn't believe it, and his voice was trembling. Chapter 1295. He had carefully studied the Guizhong Cauldron pill. Its effect was too good. It could greatly increase the success rate of every breakthrough in the Qi refining and foundation establishment stages. It could be said to be priceless. If a pill was put on the market, it would probably be worth tens of millions or even hundreds of millions. The point was that it was priceless. This pill was the only one of its kind in Tianqing School. No other organization or force had developed it. Give them all out. Kang Teichu, you really think pills are jelly beans? Deputy Leader, our Tianqing School has swept through 3 dimensions. Do you know how many of these pills we have? Next to him, Shen Mange, who was wearing a bikini, was lying on a recliner, revealing her slender and beautiful legs. She was drinking coconut juice and smiling. Next to her, Sasaki Haisha, Huang Linger, Chen Yang, Jiang Bengxia, and other young disciples of Tianqing School who liked to play, as well as Jiang Tian's relatives and friends, were chatting and laughing. The atmosphere was very warm and harmonious. The recovery of spirit Qi and the establishment of the Global Mythology Alliance were successful. Qing'er and her daughter were safe. Many disciples had performed well. Of course, they also risked their lives. Many people were injured. Jiang Tian was not the kind of person who was inflexible. He liked the lively life. He gave his disciples a vacation to bask in the sun and eat delicious food. But people like Zhenlong and Takong, Yi Tianren, Sita Shao, and even Zhao Yuankuan had heavy hearts and were not interested in having fun. Some of them were cultivating in seclusion, some were exploring ancient places, and some were chatting with each other. They didn't dare to slack off in the slightest when it came to cultivation. Then we'll listen to the leader's orders. When Li Wuji heard this, he could only nod as a bitter smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. After Li Wuji left, Zhao Xueqing smiled and said, "Honey, even Li Wuji has reached the elixir stage. You are still at the fake elixir stage. Aren't you worried?" Jiang Tian laughed and raised his daughter up high. He said proudly, "My cultivation is indeed at the fake core stage, but I have 6 divine-grade fake cores. Even if 300 golden core stage cultivators like Li Wuji attack me together, I can still kill them with a raise of my hand." Zhao Xueqing looked at Jiang Tian dotingly, then smiled and said, "Recently, your cultivation has been neglected for a long time." It's only been a few months. Jiang Tian stayed with his daughter, but he couldn't get enough of her. He was filled with boundless satisfaction and joy. His entire heart was on her. Cultivation and whatnot were just too boring. Qie, Kanglan, and other dimensional worlds that are relatively close to Earth can invade at any time. Zhao Xueqing frowned and said worriedly, "That's right. The dimensional worlds might have teleportation arrays that lead directly to Earth. We don't even know where some teleportation arrays are. My idea is to take down all the 4th-level dimensional worlds and form a barrier to protect Earth. My idea is the same as yours." Jiang Tian praised. Once a war breaks out on Earth, even if there are enough experts on Earth, it will still cause great damage to Earth. Taking down some low-level dimensional worlds is equivalent to cutting off the passage from the ruins of immortality to Earth. Even if they can use secret techniques to enter Earth, their numbers will only be high and controlled within a certain range. Jiang Tian's eyes flickered as he said in a deep voice, "As for me, I can use the large-scale teleportation array at Hanggu Pass to reach the ruins of immortality. Then, I can launch an all-out attack from the enemy's rear and kill them in one blow." "That's the right idea." Zhao Xueqing revealed a look of worry and said, "However, according to the True Dragon Patriarch and the others, the Ruins Emperor's cultivation might have reached the Soul Formation realm. Even if you have reached the Golden Core stage, I'm afraid you don't have 100% chance of winning." "Of course." Jiang Tian nodded and said seriously, "Cultivation is strict. Qi refinement, foundation establishment, Golden Core, nascent soul, soul formation, void returning, Tao reunion and finally tribulation. Every time you cross a major level, it's a metamorphosis and sublimation of life. It's like a natural chasm. Usually, only those who are extremely talented or have special physiques can kill opponents of a higher level. However, it's usually done by crossing a major level. For example, a foundation establishment cultivator killing an early-stage golden core cultivator or a late-stage nascent soul cultivator killing an early-stage soul formation cultivator. However, it's almost impossible for a golden core cultivator to win against a soul formation cultivator. Even if I have a divine-grade golden core, I can't easily kill a soul formation cultivator like the Ruins Emperor. The reason was simple. A golden core cultivator was like the engine of a sports car with the best performance, but it was just a sports car. Even if the engine was embedded with diamonds and gold, it couldn't exceed the speed of a supersonic fighter. So, you should hurry up and form a chaotic golden core. Since you've chosen not to abandon this world, you have to fight until the end, Zhao Xueqing said gently. If Jiang Tian was a cold-hearted person, he wouldn't have tried to revive the spirit qi on Earth. He could have completely monopolized the spirit qi of planet extermination and sublimate it to the extreme, which would be enough to push Jiang Tian to the nascent soul level or even the soul formation level. He could then break through the sky and enter the ruins of deity, then enter the central galaxy through the teleport arrays there. But since Jiang Tian had made such a choice, it meant that Jiang Tian loved this land deeply and he would never stop fighting for it. "But I'll be in seclusion for at least a year." Jiang Tian looked a bit hesitant. He couldn't bear to part with his daughter. Jiang Tian and the remnants of the advance troop under Tunguska kept in touch with Baigu. The Fiend Lake had become their territory at the moment. Even though they were tainted by Fiend Qi, they had always maintained a pure heart and were willing to fight to protect the civilization on Earth and mankind. However, they didn't want to come out, fearing that the Fiend Qi they carried would infect the mortal world, so they had been hiding deep inside the Fiend Lake. These days, Ying Ziyu and the others went to planet extermination again and found that the spirit qi of planet extermination was only 1/10 of what it used to be. The vacuum around it had been greatly reduced, but it was still a kilometer away. The artificial placenta was still there and Jiang Tian could still use it. Planet extermination was a deity artifact Dharma treasure, which was even more powerful than the darkest stone tablet, the sky extinguishing sword and the Dinghai pearl. The 9 dragons guiding array that Jiang Tian had made was limited by the materials used, so it could only be considered a true artifact array. It could easily destroy the artifact spirit and seize the spirit qi, but it wasn't enough to destroy planet extermination. So, there should still be enough spirit qi in planet extermination to push Jiang Tian to the golden core level. Going underground for a year wasn't a big deal in the past, but Jiang Tian had something on his mind. If he couldn't see his daughter, Jiang Tian would feel like a year. "Master, you only need a month." Suddenly, 3 rays of golden light shot through the sky. It was Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon with Situ Shao and the Wolf King. "What do you mean?" Jiang Tian frowned and suddenly realized something. He slapped his thigh and laughed. "You've dug out the 1-day imprisonment array of the Sword Tomb. Ha, you're really something, True Dragon." "That's right." Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon held an array plate the size of a washbasin and said with a smile, "This array isn't destroyed. This spell formation hasn't been destroyed. It's just that it has run out of energy crystals. Presumably, as long as it is repaired a little and opened with crystal stones, it will be usable. It turned out that ancestral patriarch True Dragon had been careful after learning that Jiang Tian, Situ Shao, and the Wolf King had been trapped by the one-day imprisonment array. He speculated that the magic treasure might not have been destroyed yet. He immediately brought Situ Shao and the Wolf King to the Sword Tomb Island. Then, he asked the Russian military to send out 10,000 people to search for the disc. They used modern technology and spiritual sense to scan the area. After dozens of days of hard work, they finally dug out the disc array. Ancestral patriarch True Dragon was a nascent soul cultivator who had lived for a few thousand years. He immediately knew that the array plate could still be used and brought it back. "Thank you, True Dragon." Jiang Tian took the array plate. "You're welcome." It was the first time that he had been praised by Jiang Tian. Ancestral patriarch True Dragon bowed and said, "It's my responsibility to share your burden, master. This array plate is not bad. It's made of time crystals, and the refining method is quite unique." Jiang Tian rubbed it and carefully sized it up. The array plate was carved with flowers, birds, insects, fish and animals. The lines were abstract and simple, giving it a strange sense of beauty. It was just a decoration. The key was the pattern. The pattern was very delicate and complicated. It looked like a circuit board, but it was also emitting an ancient and obscure aura. This was a type of time acceleration array disk. It could accelerate time within a certain range, catalyze, and evolve. The refining level was very high. Jiang Tian speculated that the array plate was probably a relic from the ancient times. It might have come from an extraterrestrial civilization. Also, the extraterrestrial civilization that had made the array plate must have been very advanced and could control time. It was probably as advanced as the Star Glory Federation. Even Jiang Tian couldn't make such an array plate with his current cultivation. After all, time and space were the most mysterious forces. Naturally, they were also the most difficult forces for cultivators to control. Some of the runes on the array plate could only be carved by Jiang Tian after he reached the divinity transformation stage. More importantly, time crystals were extremely rare in the universe. Even an entire galaxy might not be able to produce one. It could be called a divine material. You only need to use extreme energy crystals as the raw material to start it up and it can be used repeatedly. Jiang Tian checked it and was very happy. He gave the array plate to Sasaki Kaisha and said, "Give it to Zhang Qinzhen. Test and inspect it. Equip it with a suitable amount of extreme energy crystals." "Yes." Sasaki Kaisha carefully took the disc and left with the order. In order to prepare for his seclusion, apart from the time array plate, Jiang Tian also had to repair the damaged reactor of the drill. However, these were all left to Zhang Qinzhen and the refining hall. In addition, Jiang Tian asked Shen Mange and the rest to refine some backup pills. All he needed was some guidance. This was the advantage of a large sect. There were a lot of talents. Jiang Tian didn't have to do everything himself, which saved him a lot of time. Jiang Tian, on the other hand, didn't leave the sect at all. Other than spending time with his wife and children, he focused on his cultivation. He tried to finish everything in one go. He refined many fake cores again and laid a solid foundation for the chaotic golden core. On this day, 2 uninvited guests came to visit. They were Jiang Tian's 4th aunt, Shen Xian, and his cousin, Zhang Yilin.